I'm going to miss the sound of that computer generated voice, by the way. Here I am. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody out to our city council meeting, the last city council meeting of the year 2021. We don't typically get this many people out. Glad to see everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm going to start. I will open the meeting with a roll call, beginning with Jason.
Jason Thielen present. Greg Gordon present.
Carla Merrill present.
Jessica Smuin present.
Lon Lott present.
Troy Stout present. And I'd also like to welcome our police chief, Brian William, our fire chief, Brian Patton, and our city planner, Austin Roy, our city attorney, Craig Hall, and our city recorder, Bonnie, and our city manager, Shane Sorensen. Greg Gordon has been asked to give a word of prayer to open the meeting.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful to bow our heads before thee. We thank thee for our many freedoms and blessings and joys that we have. We thank thee for the good people and families in this area, and for all of the people who serve and help and contribute to making it a wonderful place to live and grow. We ask for thy spirit to be with us, that we may be wise and kind and respectful. Please help us to be thoughtful and considerate in all that we do, and do it as best for all who live and work and play in our city. We ask a blessing on all of those who are ill or otherwise in need, and on their families. And we do so in gratitude in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. And I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's move into the consent calendar. Lon, did you have anything?
Yeah, I do have some questions on this. I know there has been some changes made to the minutes, which has been given by Carla, Greg, Jason, and myself. But a question for Craig. Do we need to, because of the anchor location requirements we've had to state, do we need to say who was at the anchor location and who wasn't present, even though they were at the meeting via Zoom?
I don't think it's required, but I think it'd be good form to do that.
Okay, so Bonnie, as per the corrections that have been made, also do that on the two different meetings that we had. Two of it, Carla and Jessica were here at the anchor location on the one meeting where we canvassed the election. Right? And Greg was not there, and Jason and I were at another location. Okay. And then you know who was at the previous meeting. That's all on the minutes. As per the city council's meeting schedule for 2020, one thought I had is November 22nd meeting would be the same way as we had this year. Should we go ahead and push it to the 29th? And that way we can plan for that for next year. Yeah, but
So sorry, Lon, that was November. Are you talking
well,
about
November 22nd is that week of
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. Like we had this year, we canceled it and pushed it to the 30th to tonight.
Why wouldn't we push it to November 8th? I'm curious.
November 29th.
Right. We don't have
Oh.
November 8th.
That's election day.
Oh, that's election.
So I just posed that. If you want, I'm still good with keeping it on the 22nd. But
I had that suggestion as well, just given the Thanksgiving week.
I'll be enjoying some other activity.
Jessica.
I think the 29th, I mean, we had to adjust this year, so it makes sense. That might happen again.
So with that in mind, I will go ahead and motion that we approve the consent calendar with the following changes to the minutes as been posed, and also on the annual meeting schedule that we move November 22nd to the 29th.
I second that.
Okay, then motion. Motion by Lon Lotz, seconded by Jason Thielen. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, well, it looks like some of you might be here to make a public comment. So just before we get started with that, I will ask that we please observe the rules of public comment. Keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Austin, will you please man the timer? And also, we're going to leave, we'll take 20 minutes for public comment if it's needed. I will ask each of you to please be cognizant of your surroundings, and also please avoid repetition. Some of you have come to say the same things, and I would appreciate it if we could not hear the same thing from different people on each, with each speaker, but we do want to hear what you have to say. And also please remember that we are commenting on things that are not on the agenda for tonight. It's a magical sound. Anything that you'd like to say that has already been said, we'd appreciate you just being supportive and remaining in your seat. And if you have any questions of the council, we'd be happy to answer those. So with that, we will start with our first comment.
Hi, I'm Amanda Collins, 1593 Rosanna Lane. What was the Planning Commission's role in the conservation easement?
I'm sorry. The public comment is for items that are not on the agenda.
So I didn't think that this was on the agenda.
There is a discussion on the conservation easement tonight on the agenda. Sorry to cut you off, but we actually, that's been the rule of engagement for eons. During any other public comment?
Hi, my name's Lane Stevens, and I wanted to comment on what is happening on Hog Hollow.
Yeah.
And I believe a number of the people here are here with an interest in that, and I would ask them to stand if you are
Yeah.
here with concerns regarding fencing of Hog Hollow.
How many are out there? Come on in and fill the room.
Lane, if I can get your address, please.
Yeah.
73 South Matterhorn Drive. Thank you for taking a moment. I think this is an important topic. And I know there are some citizen-led initiatives that are coalescing around this. And I know there are things that the city can do as well. I know there are things that the city can't do. Or that is my assumption. And I think what's important is that we not work across purposes and that we find ways to complement each other. This is a resource that we have that supports every demographic we have here. We have people who walk, people who jog, people who ride horses, people who ride bikes. We went up there Thursday morning, Thanksgiving Day, as a family for a few minutes. We were up there maybe 45 minutes. And we didn't see horses, but we saw everything else. And at this point, we believe that property that Hog Hollow has been an easement that qualifies as a prospective easement because the use has been open. No one has asked me ever. I've never asked permission to use it. It's notorious. Everybody here in the city knows that you can go to Hog Hollow to get to the trail system or wherever you want to go. This has been, I've used it for well over 20 years. And so it meets I think the criteria set forth by law. And so I'm here to request that the city be transparent about what can be done and what they can do. That's the most equitable way to deal with the challenge we face. Outside of that, citizens out of their own time and resources will have to do what can't be done by the city.
Yeah.
But, and I would encourage citizens as well to be open and transparent so that the city knows what's happening. But at any rate, it's very important to me as a citizen of Alpine to preserve the ability to use that Hog Hollow area. I'm fine with the property owner having restrictions on the use of their property, but where it's an easement that's well established and an access way to get to other resources, it's important that we maintain that so that we can enjoy why we came to Alpine to live. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I want to assure you that there are at least four of us on this council right now who use those trails and access regularly as well. So we're up in arms over it. To your comments about the city doing what it can, the only thing I can say at this moment is that we are looking into it as well. And we will be as transparent as legally permitted. And there will be an effort to get to the bottom of what our rights are, what your rights are as citizens, what we can do, if anything. But I can let our city attorney address some of that as well. Craig, would you like to say anything?
Thank you. I would just echo just exactly what you said. I became aware of this over the weekend, Thursday or Friday. And yesterday I tasked one of my associates in our firm to give me a good brief and outline whether or not the city has standing to contest this. It's out of the city, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're working hard and I hope to have something definitive for the council and the mayor and the city manager by the end of the week. Lane, can I give you my card? And the reason I'm giving this to you, I would like to be directly contacted and in the loop of any citizen initiatives so that we're not duplicating actions, efforts, and wasting money, frankly. So I give you that and you can share it.
In addition, we don't want to be canceling.
That's right. This should be a win-win situation as we go forward.
Step up to the mic. You bet. Please give us your name and address.
Hi, Camille Bailey Agard. I'm a resident of Highland. Actually, Natalie, would you come join me? She's a coach of the Lone Peak mountain bike team. Just first to address Craig Hall, I'm an attorney, and I actually have been part of the citizens initiative, and so we will make sure to keep you.
I'll give you, I got some more, so
Yeah,
I got plenty.
Creative ways to address the standing issue, and hopefully that we can collaborate in short-term solutions as well, so the kids can continue to use these trails. I just want Natalie to comment on the impact that this could be, not just on Alpine and Highland, but you know, for those of you who are mountain bikers, you know that on a summer morning, you might start up Hogs and encounter 200 kids, I would guess. And I just want you to speak to the impact that we will be on Draper if we try to divert these kids and they don't have access through that trail.
Yeah, so the Hawks Hollow Trail is super important to us because of the size of it and the ability to be able to get so many people. I know I've heard comments from developer or other people that we will have access up at the Fort Canyon through Three Falls, and I've heard comments that you could access it up through Suncrest and access the trails down that way. But both of those to me aren't very viable solutions just because of the safety that it would cause for, especially for the bikers. If we will have kids heading up Suncrest on their bikes or coming down from practices on Suncrest, which isn't a very good solution for putting any of those kids and then on the road. And then the other with the other access point up Fort Canyon, I feel because it's so narrow, you have a bi-directional trail, which all of a sudden puts a lot of traffic on that trail, which makes it really dangerous for anybody, whether they're a biker, hiker, horses. And I just don't feel with the amount of people that we have accessing these trails that we have losing that trail actually really is detrimental to our community. And then the second thing that I was thinking about was this is a complicated thing to resolve because we have 3 cities. And so I feel like I've been talking to different Draper and Highland, and then we have Alpine. And I just feel there's so many people that are concerned about this issue. And I do feel like there's duplicate resources and people working behind the scenes. And I don't know how to get everybody on the same page as far as Highland, Draper, and Alpine. So we are all in the loop and we can kind of put our efforts together to make this a resolution that's going to work for everybody.
So I just.
And we're going to combine your times, by the way. You have 3
Okay.
minutes.
Well, so Breezy Anson just got here and he said he just heard from Draper, and if he can come up and speak, I know he's here because I just.
Where's
got a-
Breezy? You out there, Breezy? Get Breezy give him a police escort, chief.
Hi, Breezy Anson, 633 Wilderness Drive and Trail Committee guy. So, sorry, I just got here. We were running back and forth from karate and gymnastic stuff. So, I would like to address the fence that we've been having a lot of talk about, a lot of emails and calls. So I've been working with Draper City and I've also spoken with Carla about having a meeting. Bill Becker, who's over the Corner Canyon Foundation, he's happy to meet with us and to have a sit down meeting to see what their plans are. Now I got a text message from Greg at Draper City, and let me pull up that text message. He always sends me emojis, so let me go through all of his emojis. He said, yeah, we should reach out to the council members and mayor. He said, I'm told the official response to inquire is a private property owner has a right to fence their property, but must do so without impeding. The Draper City is working to determine if any historic or prescriptive access right to its property exists that need to be honored by the property owner. So they are looking into it. This isn't something where Draper City is saying, hey, we don't own the property. We're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to shut anybody out, because I think they're starting to realize that this is a bigger issue. And this isn't just an issue from now. This has been an issue since that road has been open to 4-wheelers and horses. And I'd say since we've been here, there's probably been 3 or 4 fences that have been put up on that property.
Yeah.
So, or gates or something. So Draper City is well aware of this. And what I would like to do is I'd like to have Highland City, Alpine City, and Draper City get together and say, hey guys, Corner Canyon isn't just Draper now. There's a lot of people that use it. If we do get cut out and we do get blocked, access is blocked, we want to have a resolution of, instead of us jamming up all of their parking and their trailhead parking, is what we're gonna do and the help we've had. And this is another reason why we'd like to get Bill Becker involved, because Bill, a lot of what we do is kind of out of sight, out of mind. And people don't realize what we do until they ride the trails. They say, oh, this is great. Well, there's a lot of work, and Bill is championing us to have access to it because he understands what we've done to help, and we've helped them a lot. And so Bill's is gonna do what he can to try to help us out. And it sounds like Draper as well. There are quite a few that I think they understand that they don't want to completely cut us out. But at the same time, there is no development agreement that they have with Blue Bison. So for them to say, well, you have to give them access, they just can't do that because there is no development agreement they have.
And that's a question I had for Draper City. I left a message, haven't heard back yet, regarding the sale of the property. When it was sold originally, did it have any declarations that trails must stay open, or anything that was, if it was established, that it must remain open? Haven't heard the answer on that. I'm guessing that it did not involve that language, but I'm hoping that somewhere along the line, there's something for us.
Okay.
Can I just ask you a question, Breezy and Natalie? What would be the impact if it does get blocked and you have to direct traffic on a practice day over to their side? Like how many students, how many riders are we talking about?
200.
Oh, hundreds.
No,
I mean, hundreds a day. I mean, a day.
Well, you're
they're-
talking of Corner Canyon. You're
Yeah.
talking about Corner Canyon that has about 400 kids. And then Lone Peak has 350 kids. And then you have Sky Ridge that has 200 kids. And then you have AF that has 200 kids. So we're not, it's, yeah.
And
And your
it's,
trails, can they accommodate 1,000 riders on any given practice?
Well,
day? 'Cause we only have
that's-
Monday through what, Thursday or Friday, I guess.
Right now, we do have a system, and with all the trailheads, we're able to delegate and maneuver everybody around, but the Hogs Hollow trailhead is a huge part of parking and getting people off in different directions.
Yeah.
But going back to one other question I have is with the Draper City, is I think there is a deal that is under works with a sale that that's going to be able to put that final road in for them. I'm not sure it's closed yet, but someone says it's something that we needed to be made aware of, and a discussion we needed to have with Draper, because it is the final access road into their property from Suncrest to Angels Gate, I believe.
and if
So-
the west part of our trail access to Corner Canyon gets blocked off over off Westfield, that's gonna block the entire west side. And so it's gonna direct traffic up. If you want to access Corner Canyon, you're gonna have to go through Three Falls.
Yeah.
And then that's really
And
gonna
that's just-
cause quite a bit of problems.
But also cuts out
And-
some of the riders or hikers because it's much more vertical.
Yeah, and we
Trail.
are putting
And
in
it's
more
narrow.
trails. We've got more trails that we're putting in, and we're constantly always looking for trails and putting in trails. But having that west side available really would alleviate a lot of problem. And from who I've talked with the Draper, they understand that and they know that. And but at the same time, without any maps that they've got to go off of a development agreement, they just can't say,
Yeah.
go across the private property, because that's not their private property
Yeah.
to
Okay,
tell them what they can do. So, okay.
council, any
Anything else?
comments?
No, but I think. Just got another time. I think there's Kim Rodella, council representative from Highland. Out in the hall.
You say she's here.
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Come on up.
Oh, goodness. I was back there. Yeah, I'm Kim Rodella. I'm with the City Council in Highland City. And I just wanted to say, we are here representing Highland. We're very much wanting to be involved in this. And basically just work with the two other cities to make sure that we can come to an agreement that is beneficial to our residents. So just with that said, please, let's all work together. And I think we all love these trails. I run Hogs Hollow. I just was on Three Falls last week, a week and a half ago. And so these are trails that we very much want to keep open. And so Highland is very much on board with working with both cities to make sure that happens.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Sir.
For the record, my name is Rick Louder. I'm from Highland as well. Appreciate you allowing foreigners to attend the meeting. I just want to let everybody know that we share the same frustration over the trail situation. And want to let those of you who are here because of that issue, and also to let Mr. Hall know that we have been fighting this for a number of years and have organized actually an LLC, and we've hired competent legal counsel.
Who is that?
Land use, Dan McDonald. And I wanted to let you know, Mr. Attorney, in case we wanted to coordinate that. And for all those here who are interested, we have a GoFundMe page because this isn't cheap to fight these issues. It's Save Our Trails, GoFundMe.com and Save Our Trails. If anybody has any questions on what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish, you can chat with me after the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. About 4 minutes left.
John Jonas, I live in Highland and not close to this blue bison. And I would just encourage you to stick with what you have done in the past in regards to that. I feel like the trail access will work itself out, probably outside of you. And so I would just encourage you to stick with what you do. It doesn't affect me traffic wise, but yeah.
Thank you. Is there anybody from Alpine who'd like to get up? No offense, Highlanders, you're welcome to come up too.
Oh, it's Natalie's from Alpine.
Oh yeah, Natalie.
I can say something. Nick Hudson, 802 Allegheny Circle. I'll just say I grew up in this area. My grandpa, a lot of you probably know him, Blaine Hudson. We would go visit him. Go up Fort Canyon and oftentimes go up Hogs Hollow. Spent a lot of time going up there as a kid. Spent a lot of time now as a mountain biker associated with the Lone Peak team. As a runner, I run trail races. It's an absolutely irreplaceable asset that, it's tough to describe the importance to that. And really, as Natalie said, the impact of losing that particular access point is really immeasurable to the team, to me as a runner, to me taking my kids. We became aware of the fence on Sunday as we were walking up the Beacon Hill Trail. What are these poles here? Kids said, I don't know, they look kind of fun. So they're climbing around on them. That's part of my kids growing up. It was part of my growing up. I think it's an invaluable community asset that I think we can all stand behind, and for our various uses, say, it's part of who we are. That's it.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Is our time almost up?
It's well, it is now.
Thank you, Mayor.
Had to get that little jab in there.
Yes, I
Thanks,
appreciate
Ross.
that. Mayor, I just want 2 comments.
Name and address, please.
Ross
Sorry.
Welch, 201 Red Pine Drive. Here's the deal. Number one, and I hope Alpinians here. Mayor, when did you start on the Planning Commission?
2007 or 8.
Jason, was he ahead of you? Or on the Planning Commission? Just him. So 2008?
Ish.
So 13 years of service to our community.
Oh,
And I'd just like to thank, this is our last public meeting and yours kind of the wrap up.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, everybody give them a standing ovation for the service, 13 years of service for our city. So if we could.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
I don't always agree with the mayor. In fact, the reason I'm here is I don't agree, but I do acknowledge your service and thank you for it, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
And
It's much
the other
appreciated.
second item is I also want to public acknowledge the write-up that Councilman Lon Lot wrote in Connections Magazine. I thought it eloquently expressed our feelings about the election and our service of all of you on behalf of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ross. You can speak again if you'd like. That was nice. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. Is there anybody else who'd like to jump up and make a comment? Okay, then we will proceed with the rest of our meeting. On our agenda, you can see that we have A through I tonight, so we're going to want to get through items while giving them ample time for good discussion. I can't believe you're not going to stay for the rest of this meeting. It's adrenaline filled. You're going to regret leaving.
Goes till 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it goes till 9. You have time to go back home and get something to eat and come back. Thank you. For those of you who are remaining, thank you. We will begin with a public hearing on the general plan for the city. And in that public hearing, we have the same rules of engagement as we did for public comment. Okay, let's get started with our meeting. Again, we'll have a public hearing on the general plan, and hopefully some of you who would like to make comments have had a chance to read through the plan. We've gone through several work sessions in this plan, and we have given a lot of thought and consideration to it. The general plan is something that we count on as a city to establish the direction and vision of our city. If I could ask everybody to please step out a little further and keep your conversations as quiet as you can. Thank you.
Think of it as white noise.
Yeah. All right, so we have our general plan. In fact, I don't have a hard copy, but I have my packet. So Shane, would you like to finish? Go ahead. I'll look on my electronic packet.
So we went through the changes that were discussed the last time we had this on the agenda. Austin has made the corrections there, and that copy is in your packet. And maybe Austin, if you want to just touch on the changes that were made.
We'll have Austin do that and provide some highlights, and then we'll open it up to public comment.
Okay, so this is the final draft that we put together. Again, as the mayor said, this has been to many meetings. It's been a work in progress, and we feel like this is in a good spot. This draft here that you had in your electronic packet that was sent to you over the weekend, there's been one change since then that we had today. We in the land use map, which is figure 1 in the document, was just missing the header at the top that said figure 1. And so we've added that in. And then in the last meeting, we talked about some grammatical corrections that needed to be made, and those have been made in this document. The last section that we added to the document was the final section, the community involvement section. Let me just pull that up actually. So it's here towards the end. But all of these figures are now in high quality. Those have been updated. We had a lower resolution version in the previous draft that was that the public would have seen. So our community engagement section, this is the newest section that we've adopted. This language here has been ironed out. The previous version that we saw in the previous meeting, we've just kind of tweaked some of the things in here to make it flow better, but it's still the same message and that was originally there. So I think this document's ready to go. All the figures are here, everything's up to date. If we have any further comments on it, or if the public has any further comments, we'd love to hear that. Make any final last tweaks to the document.
So I think I sent an email earlier this week regarding the footpath that goes along Box Elder.
Box Elder.
Because we talked about that several times. They're not seeing it in the trails map. said it was going to be a pedestrian foot trail, especially designed for the kids to get to and from their buses. And I thought maybe that's what the foot only or the walking only trail was going to kind of incorporate that, but I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, it still connects at the curve on Box Elder.
But I thought the idea was that it was going to go along Box Elder so they wouldn't have to walk on the street.
Yeah, so are we looking for something in the legend on the side here that designates that as a
No, we need
safe
something
walking
drawn
path?
in
Or
saying that that's will go in.
okay,
So once we get through the public hearing into the council discussion, let's maybe address that a little further and make it part of a motion. Carla, are you comfortable with that? We make that part of the motion? that
Yes,
it's amended?
definitely part of the
Okay,
motion.
all right, so let's move on. Anything else, Austin, that you wanted to cover before we open it up?
no, I think most of the changes since the last draft are very minor, mostly grammatical stuff, so I don't think there's nothing major to point out in this version.
Okay. All right, then let's open it up. As I said before, we'll limit the comments to 3 minutes. And there won't be a time limit on this. We'll talk as long as the public wants to provide input. So we'll start that now. And please, again, state your name and address when you come up to the front.
Ross Welch, representing Sunset Mountain Properties Limited Partnership. I, once again, 201 Red Pine Drive. Mayor, you sorry piece of, anyway, so. So one of the things that was a little disconcerting was looking at this recent packet. There's a parcel that Sunset up in Smooth Canyon that is now put under park. That hadn't been discussed and vetted through planning commission, but seems now to be before you at city council. The feeling is for us, parks are a precious thing in our community. We need them and we have limited funds, and let's make sure they're maximized at the best locations and the best place we can have them. And so concern in this one is, number one, it's in the very southeast corner of our community, which doesn't have very good access and services more Highland just as much as Alpine residents in its location. There are 2 existing parks up there already, one by the church and one by development there of Smooth Canyon. It seems like, and this is property owned by a developer who views this as the business, right? This is how they make the money, and so therefore has higher value to them than just a farmer who sells it to a developer or the city. Seems like we could hit a location, for example, there's areas under the power line corridor with the Bangaters and excess property that we could designate for good park and have more access in terms of central location, not out of the way, not having people drive up through neighborhoods trying to get to this park for a soccer tournament or whatever. So I feel like this piece, I know there was at one time a plat that had it on there.
Mm-hmm.
And but it, as a developer, did not make sense viability wise, right? In other words, you have 44 half-acre lots, or you can have 37 1/3 acre lots. That just doesn't equate, right, financially. 1 half-acre lots is going to generate you, let's be conservative, it's going to generate well over $100,000 more than the 1/3 acre lot. So you get 44 of those, that's $4.4 million more. And then you only get on contract 3 extra for thirds. And so it just can't equate to the financial burden is far exceeds the benefit of putting in a park. So either, and I don't know that when you have a piece of property that's as small as this, it's hard to make that happen. But if you have a larger piece, then you can allocate densities. You can work with the landowner to get a park and transition densities that make sense. In a small piece, it doesn't work, and that's the situation here. And so that's as a landowner, that's feedback on the general plan I'm concerned about. Didn't feel like it really went through the process of vetting of saying, this is where we want our parks to be as a community.
Ross, can I ask you a question? And I have a partial memory of the history of this
Yes,
piece.
yes.
The first half of the development, which is currently park and smaller lots.
Right.
My understanding was when that went in, there was an agreement drawn up for the second half where this
Correct.
was designated as park. And then remember, we did an extension of that
Correct.
agreement
10-year
once it
extension.
expired. Yeah.
10-year. So in 2011, we had that agreement that related actually to Box Elder South and the water tank and all that, and then extended this for 10 more years. And then after that expired, it's financially looking at it going, this doesn't pencil. I mean, this is taking out of our pockets over $3 million. And it's like, why? Why? I mean, this is our business, right? It's not like if someone wants to make a donation of $3 million, that's great. And they can give it to us and we'll let the city have it, or something. But it's hard, as this is what supports our families, and our deal is to make money driving these developments. So anyway.
So was there any conversation around that as far as you're concerned? Did we have any once that agreement expired?
Yes.
The 10-year.
Yes. Was there any what?
Was the 10-year, when did the renewal expire?
This year.
Last year?
Was
This year.
April of this year.
Okay. All right. So did you make it known to the city that you did not intend to go that direction at that point?
I think I did with some staff members. And then we recently submitted a plan for it as well.
Okay. All right.
Recently, as in yesterday. That's pretty recent. But anyway.
Fairly recent.
Yeah.
But as far as I
Can
can
ask one
remember.
question about the historical piece. So was the density, was the future park part of the agreement for the density of
It
that
was-
first
At
phase?
the time, we had a
Mhm.
city ordinance that required them to come in as a PRD or planned residential development. And so what that allowed was them to donate, 20%?
20 or 25, I can't remember.
And then you in turn get a percentage of increased lots.
Yeah.
But it was done by two different developers, the north end and the south end. And the north end came in with smaller lots, and then you guys came in actually with larger lots. And so you didn't have as many.
Overall, the other one had some bigger than what we had. Ours were all 15,000. They had some that were 18, some that were quarter acre size. They had a diverse.
It was a
number of those.
variety of
Yes.
sizes. And then
And-
since then, our PRD ordinance changed. And so they no longer had to come in as a PRD.
And so
So it's currently zoned for half-acre lots.
yes, the zone currently is happening.
And your current request is based on half-acre lots.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Thoughts, Shane?
Just explain why it was a PRD. They could have requested one and they could today. Back then, if any of the hazards that are identified on our hazard maps touched the property, it had to be a PRD. And so there was one of our hazards that just barely on the east side came into the property. And so it was a PRD. That ordinance has since changed. And now it's not forced. If someone wants to request a PRD, they can. Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the city council if they feel like it should be a PRD, and then the city council can approve it, and then it moves forward through the process from there.
So that would not affect this parcel, even if it were still the case, right? Are there hazards that touch this property, the undeveloped?
Not now. That little provision in the ordinance was taken out. So.
Okay. So I guess we can entertain that as part of the motion as well, if there's a motion to pass tonight. Any other comment?
Will Jones, 999 North Grove Drive. To me, the couple areas that I'm most interested in, of course, are the trails and what is happening on the trails in this scene. And if we're covering them all, some of the things that happen to us is occasionally a piece will come in to be developed, and we won't have done the homework we need to make sure that that trail is on this particular land use and master plan. So I don't know that we as a trail committee have had a full review of exactly what map is on here. When I heard Carla mentioning what she was tonight, that threw me because I wasn't even aware of what you were actually asking. So that's one of my concerns, is that we certainly would love to make sure that the maps that we have on here are. There's another thing. Does this address in the park anything like Lambert Park, anything specific as far as what can be built, what can't be built, what talk about roads, does it talk about not roads? I mean, in this new thing, are we changing things that actually deal with the park?
I can answer that. So what has been included in there, and Austin, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, what has been included are any plans, for example, the Moyle Park Master Plan is included, the Lambert Park Master Plan is included.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Are there others? Like,
There's actually a Lambert Park master plan in there. Did you say that? Yeah.
yeah,
Which is
it's there. It doesn't mean that it can't change.
right.
But
Is this the one that was done for
currently
around the
adopted-
Bowery? Is this the one that was done for?
It
around
doesn't
the-
have all the details, but it's kind of general.
I think the
Not the
Bowery
Bowery
one,
master
minus
plan.
the camping sites for the RVs. We took that portion out.
I don't think we put that in there. Right.
I'm showing it on the screen right now. So this is the Lambert
The
Park
Bowery
master plan. It's it's a basic plan. It includes things like the poppies, some of the trails, some signage, that type of thing.
And the reason I'm bringing that out obviously is as we move forward trying to do other things in Lambert Park. I wonder, this is where we got to start, is having something here that we plan on doing. And so as we're taking things out, I don't know that this is the right time to take things out of what we're planning to do at Lambert Park. In fact, if anything, it's time to put more stuff in Lambert Park so that we don't get limited later down the road in what we could or could not do.
What, give us an example.
Well, for example, I just heard, and I didn't know this had even occurred, is that we had prepared some parking spots and they weren't necessarily RV parking spots. They were parking spots with a picnic table, a little pavilion thing over the top, where somebody could go with their family and put up a tent. And we actually were gonna make, I think there were some tent spaces cleared and shown on this plan. And did we eliminate those? Is that what I just heard?
So we discussed that fairly extensively last, was it last meeting or 2 meetings ago?
Last meeting.
At the last meeting, and Austin kind of dug into that and found those plans, and we were kind of in the process. There were 2 different plans. We kind of blended the 2, went to planning commission, and it never did get adopted at the city council level. But as we looked at that, we think there might be the need to have some more discussion on some of those things. They did look more like RV campsites, and they're more than any of us remembered.
Yeah, and they weren't intended ever to be RV because we weren't providing any sewer or anything like that.
No connections.
No, there was no connection to it. And it was, again, just so if you decided you want to take your family up and have someplace instead of going up to American Fork, which you can't get into anyway, and can't get a place to camp, that you could go here. And in 5 minutes, and you would have a nice place to set a tent up, and you'd have a table and you'd have a pit that could do it. That was how it was designed when we designed it. Do we still keep the amphitheater design that's there, the 2 pavilions, to retro the 1 pavilion there and add the other pavilion, or those things part of this plan still, or?
So the way I
Go ahead.
understand it right now, it isn't part of the general plan because it wasn't adopted.
But can't we do that as we do this? As well, I guess that's why.
The answer is yes, we can if we choose to. And I remember part of that discussion was around sustaining the tradition of having outings up there for local groups to be able to camp overnight, again, without improvements or connections.
Yeah,
But-
we have the 1 bathroom facility. That's all we were ever intending. We weren't going to put other bathroom facilities. We just felt like that was adequate for what we want to see. We don't want that to be, the major place for people to do. But on a Friday, Saturday night, if someone wants to go there and take a family and pitch a tent and do something, that was the idea when we designed that. And so I'm hoping that will stay in there, please. I think
That's what I'm asking for right now, is I think that's important. Like I say, as we move forward with what some of the things we're talking about concerning Lambert Park, I think those things need to be more than less. Because if we get less, then coming back and trying to put them in, we're not gonna be able to do it. We've all learned that. That's not gonna happen. Okay, and then so I don't mean to take everybody's time. And there is a great drawing. I mean, there was a lot of work done on this and a great layout.
It's up on screen.
That doesn't look as good as it did on my screen. It's good though. That's good. Okay, that's what we're trying to accomplish, is to, keep it natural. That was the goal, number one, natural. And then how do we use it so more people can enjoy it? That was, again, the same thing we decided with the rotograph. Okay, that's a certain group. Now we need another little group. What can we do for them? We're working on a walking trail right now. I hope some of you've had a chance to go out and see some of this walking trail. It's a lot of work to put it in, but it is, those who complain most seem to be the most ones on it the most often. The ones that yell at us yesterday are caught tomorrow, running down it or walking on it. And when we ask them if they like it, they just run past it. So we're helping their exercise program. But our goal here is to make sure these things, especially our trails, because we have an intention, as everybody's aware, of doing 2 flows on the south end and 1 uphill, which means we'll
In Box
eliminate.
Hill, or in Three Falls.
No,
No.
no.
Right here on
Oh,
the
I'm
south.
sorry.
South
I know what you're
Lambert,
talking
South
about.
Lambert, over
the
there by
border.
Ziggy.
Yep.
Ziggy will become one of the downs. We'll do other one over on the edge of it, right on the edge. And somewhere around Zag and Dog and Green Dog and Purple Dog and Yellow Dog, we will do an uphill that will go clear to the top. And this is critical for what our goal was here, to Crossfire.
Yeah.
So that we can make sure that we're driving people to Crossfire. And the best way to do that is to have something worthwhile writing down. And so we want to make sure those at least are in this general plan going forward, so that as we come in, we don't have to go back and forth on this again and again, because I think the groundwork's been done on that. I think we've all, in fact, I think there's motions that talk about these particular trails. And then there also was a green flow trail, and I didn't notice it on the thing clear over on the north end, just barely south of Spring. Remember that one that was going to come down?
South of Spring?
I thought
Yeah.
that wasn't gonna work because of the roads.
It wasn't gonna work as anything bigger than a green. It would work as a green, but it would not work bigger than that, because we can't, your city road maintenance road that goes up to Spring, we would be crossing it too many times.
Where this dotted line is that's between the box
Is that it?
elder.
You can
Yeah.
put-
I don't know. I don't have
You
it.
should be able
you
to,
can
you
touch
should be
it
able to
now.
mark it on the thing now on the screen. With your finger.
What in the world?
I did it, Breezy.
Holy smokes.
Write that down. I'm more
Look at that.
internet savvy than you are, man.
Happy.
Okay, so that's the one I'm critical, that we really want to make sure we keep in, because that's our green downhill that we're gonna try and do in the park there. Okay, well, those are the things that I'm looking for as we go forward in this, to make sure. And then again, if there's other things we're changing in Lambert, things we're eliminating, things we're saying can't happen, I think it'd be important for all of us to know what those things might be. If there's something like that that changed in the general plan that wasn't in there. I remember one for me that's, and it doesn't really matter to me, but I know it does to a lot of people, one that said, we're gonna not allow any private roads in Alpine. And I thought, okay, that was, I don't know if it made it in. Jason, I think it was your motion to put it in. I don't know if it's in the general plan and what that affects, or what pieces it affects.
Is it a private road or gated community?
No, it's private road.
Well,
Both.
that's what was in it.
Yeah,
That's what was in it
gated
before, but
community
as I'm
there.
looking in the general plan, it doesn't look like it was changed since our last one,
I
keep going.
I think it was there and it was simplified. in the end.
We simplified it a little.
Yeah.
So what did we change that to, I guess is what I'm asking.
I'll
What,
read
what,
it to you.
That's something we're still gonna discuss here in a second.
okay, that's what I said. Those are some of the things because I've been to the meetings.
But how would that play a part in this whole thing, the Lambert part? Is that what you're talking about somehow?
No, I think he's just talking about something different.
I'm talking the whole general plan. That's why I say,
But
part of
Will-
it, I was on trails and stuff in Lambert Park, and then I switched and said, okay, what other things possibly are in the general plan that the citizens would like to know have changed, so that's what we're here to discuss, is our input on those things that may have changed from what
Yeah.
How many of us actually read the general plan? That would be a
Right.
great thing to ask everybody here, because I'm one of the dummies that does read those things, but.
So Will, let me ask you to yield your time for right now because
I've
you've
got-
gone quite a bit over. And if you'd like to get back up in a minute, that's great. I
No,
just want to give
I'm-
somebody else a
I'm
chance if
gonna
they
be
want.
leaving.
Thank you, Will. All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to get up and ask a question or make a comment on the general plan?
Weston Lunsford, 2241 North, Three Falls. In regards to the water section or utility section on here, and I haven't been attending the city councils. I have been getting versed on this plan and this proposed plan, just reading through it. What requirements are on new developer? I'm worried about water. So that's where my concern is.
We all are.
I don't see that there's been much added in to put more burden and requirement on the future developers' responsibility to do a forward-looking study on the water plant. I get that it says in there, it's pretty simple, pretty plain text, that they have to provide their water shares, but the water shares are shrinking. Shares aren't shrinking. The volume of water within each share is shrinking, and it's been shrinking for the past 38 years. We can see a solid decline, and I don't think it's coming back. So I'm just wondering if we've thought, or if you guys have discussed and reviewed what other burdens should be put on developers in regards of pushing out a further look of water, so I don't wake up 10 years from now saying, sorry, we can't provide water for you anymore.
It's a great question, and I'm going to defer in part to Craig.
And that's it. So I'm going to sit.
Okay,
but-
that should be part of a future ordinance as opposed to part of the general plan.
Yeah, so I can answer that. So we have both a culinary and a pressurized irrigation capital facilities plan update going on right now. I'd anticipate those will be presented to the city council probably in January. It could be February before they get here, but we are working on that. We're looking at the needs for the build out of the city.
Can I say one more comment real quick? Thank you. So in this document, though, it just says private development should provide all internal distribution facilities of water. But we're not discussing or putting in any requirements in this general plan that there needs to be a study on the available water. It doesn't matter if you put in a container to hold water if there's no water feeding the container.
Yeah, but that's what the capital facilities plan does, and that's what our impact fees are based on, is the needs for the future growth of the city. And so the general plan, like having a plan for water or for sewer or storm drain, is not a requirement of the general plan. It's not one of the elements that's required. We address that in a different way.
Okay.
So that's
So
just
these comments in here under culinary and pressurized then are just broad
It's just a
guidelines?
very general, broad
Yeah.
statement, yes.
Okay.
That's why I say it should be addressed. If this is going to come to a head, it should be done in an ordinance that would require builders to do X. And so that goes through an entirely different process. It runs through the planning commission and then back to the city council, but it's something we should be addressing. You're right.
Okay, okay, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then let's conclude our public hearing on the general plan. Hopefully we took note of those things that were suggested and those things, especially considering the trails and other things that we can't, and the park that we have on the southeast corner of town. Austin, is there any reason why we should continue to show that as open space or park? Or it doesn't seem to me very logical to do so if the developer doesn't want that and doesn't need the
Smooth Canyon.
The Smooth
Yes.
Canyon. I mean,
I mean, as we discussed before, if it's on that map and the developer comes in and submits a plan that's not a PRD, city says, hey, on our land use plan, that shows as a future park. They say, okay, it will cost you X dollars to buy this property. Are you willing to pay that?
Right.
We say yes, then we do it and they adjust their development. If we say no, then it moves forward. We ran into that previously with the 40 acres south of Box Elder. It was on the plan as a park. The city couldn't come up with the funds to purchase the property, so it ended up going a different direction.
Well, and if this does not go to park, it will impact the use of the existing park because that's come up a few times in the past several years about expanding parking and facilities there, but we've looked forward to that other half being developed so that we could compensate there. Without that, then we're probably gonna have to revisit some of those same questions on
But at
this
the
on the
same
existing
time,
park.
Ross has a point. There are two parks there already, Smooth Canyon
Mhm.
Park
Yeah.
and Ely Park.
Yeah. But the one on, let's see, Smooth Canyon Park really has almost no parking. Except for what we rely on across the street.
Yeah, Mayor, we did address that parking issue and we still have a plan that shows.
Yeah.
We had it drawn up.
Yep.
That if we don't have that other side.
You move the
We
bathroom.
could implement that parking plan.
Yeah.
As designed.
Yep.
From the past.
It's there. There's
So-
some objection from the neighborhood,
Yeah,
but it
yes,
is a
yes,
plan that
but,
we have.
but again, we have addressed it. We would need to readdress it.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, Lon, would you like to start? the
Yes, I
discussion?
would like to. Thank you, Mayor. On the policies, land use policies, the very 2.8, Austin, we need to just scratch 2.8 because you did what we asked you to do and move it to 2.1. So it's duplicated. in
Oh,
there.
do we have it duplicated in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
duplicated in there. So, does read better and look better as 2.1, but just scratch 2.8.
I'm not seeing it 2.8. You guys see it?
Under.
Is it not in the packet?
Go
Was
to
it
the
updated?
land use.
Section,
Okay, sorry, I was in the
Page
wrong
5.
section.
goal 2,
Isn't it?
goal 2, policies,
So 2.1 and 2.0 are exactly the same.
they're exactly the same.
Okay.
Just 2.8 needs to be eliminated, okay? Also then,
Yeah, mine doesn't have it.
on
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's right there.
page 18, 1.2, it states, allow senior housing units to be built in more dense clusters in the senior housing overlay to reduce the cost of living. The word more hit me a little funny because we do have the ordinance that says how many units can be put in the senior housing overlay. And to me, if I read this, that it would be more, I don't know if more is the right word to fit in there, if it just is simply be built in dense clusters in senior housing overlay. And just follow the ordinance that we have pertaining to the density.
Well, I think what you're after is it really lacks definition. What is more and what
Yeah.
is not more? What is dense clusters and what is more dense clusters?
So
Seems
that,
like we need to put
again,
some
we've
quantifiable-
gone over this several times, but that one hit me this time to say, okay, what is it? What is that?
What's your suggestion, Lon? And
Well, just take out more.
Okay.
It was probably thinking of more dense than typical residential housing, but I think taking the word more out is fine too.
Yeah, I think the word dense more than, gets the point across that it's going to be higher, it's a higher volume.
Again, then Mayor, thoughts of the council while I'm on that one.
Yeah, any thoughts on that grammar?
Yep, that's surprised you didn't catch that. That's good.
Okay. And then just a question on page 13, create and promote an active transportation plan for Alpine City. Where is this active transportation plan located?
We don't have one. It's saying that we should create one, and we are
Okay.
working towards that. We applied for some money along with Highland City to do kind of a joint active transportation plan.
Okay.
So it anticipates that being.
Okay. Okay, Mayor, I think that is all that I.
Thank you, Lon. Jessica?
In the section of community engagement. I think maybe because it was Thanksgiving weekend, I wanted to add tradition to under goal 1, so that's page 28. It would read civic events, traditions, and other programs. So work in partnership with residents and businesses to support Alpine Days, civic events. We could say Alpine traditions. Probably it reads better if we say Alpine traditions and other programs to increase social and community connections. I'm thinking of things like the live nativity. You know, we have some great traditions that I'd like to, you know, make sure our master plan builds around those.
Yeah, good point.
And then I didn't know if under land use, the same in the zoning, we at 2.1 where we discuss high density zones in the center of the city, gradually lower density zones as you move towards the outer city limits. Do we need to clarify that a little more or delineate anything about the corridor as you come into Alpine? Are we going to have any flexibility with that, or do we want that to also follow the bullseye model?
Which area?
The Bacon or Burgess property area.
So if I can just make a comment, Mayor, in my mind, if something different than the zoning that's currently on that property were to happen, the general plan would need to change anyway. And so that it could be addressed at that time.
Okay.
So for example, if there ended up being some type of mixed use zone, or if it changed to commercial or whatever happened, my understanding it would require an amendment to the general plan.
So that would be the sequence of events to address it at that time, because we don't know what that's going to look like.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that was it then.
And the same would, I guess, in hand with that would be if there's any zone changes that would require an amendment to the plan as well.
That's correct.
An amendment to the general plan?
Yep. Yeah, when the zone change took place out west, there was an amendment to the general plan. Craig, you can't reach me, but kick me if I'm wrong. That's my understanding of the process.
Same is true. We show potential annexation as well. And if they're annexed, the plan would change slightly just to recategorize that area.
And the amendment to the general plan would be mostly just changing the map.
Yeah, that's what's traditionally happened in the past handful of zone changes there have been. Or annexations, yes.
So, did you have anything else? Okay, Carla?
Yeah, I was just curious, Craig, why, so why was it suggested that we take the annexation plan out of our general plan? Or to leave it out?
Because it's a separate document
Okay,
and
it doesn't
you
need
have
to be
to.
in there.
I think it should stand by itself as what's potential to be potentially added to the community, not, and then when and if it comes in, the general plan would have to be reconsidered, amended, or supplemented based on that annexation, that consideration.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Carla, did
and
you
then
do
just the
that?
foot that goes along Fox Elder. I thought we discussed it. And, you know, when Will said that, I think there was a big faux pas on our part. I don't know if we ever conveyed that to the trail committee, that was our intention, but I don't know if it was something that the trail committee was going to take on or if the city, do you know what I mean?
Well, and the trail committee is a recommending committee. We're not, we don't have to get their approval to move forward on what
Oh, no,
council
no,
wants to do.
For sure. But I was thinking, you know, they're already putting in a foot only trail that we probably should have worked more closely.
Yeah.
And have it aligned, you know, if they could have aligned that trail to go along it, then we could, you know,
And right now,
Two birds with one stone.
if I'm not wrong, Austin, if you show that map real quick, of that, especially that northwest corner of the park where it kind of intersects with Box Elder and Grove, that corner, are we showing the improvements that we discussed as a,
On the Grove Drive.
yeah, to make that a safer route?
We're talking about the road or the trail map?
The road. And I'm sorry, I don't want to take away from your time, but because I think they're kind of one and the same. That trail is for foot traffic, but the road needs to be adjusted to allow for the trail to be a better trail for children.
Yeah, and so as I understand this, and we will be updating our street master plan as well as probably our parks master plan and that, so those would be addressed in more detail there. But as I understand this, these documents are exhibits. They're just saying this is the currently adopted street master plan, or trail master plan. But it's my understanding that if the council decides that we're gonna add another trail somewhere, I don't believe that the general plan has to be amended.
We just
for that to
update the
happen.
exhibits.
And so it's not saying if it's not on here, you can't build that path on Grove Drive. So.
I agree with you.
Okay,
Sounds good.
so as long as it's not prohibited in the plan, we can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Thanks. Anything else, Carla?
Nope.
Greg?
No other improvements. I think it's come to a good place. We worked on it all year and I think it's in a good state.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Jason?
Maybe I have an old copy that was in my thing, but 1.7 on the private streets, we can go there. We talked about this last time.
Page 13.
Doesn't look like it's changed.
Yeah, so upon reviewing the minutes, I believe, from what I was able to gather from the minutes, you made the suggestion to change the language there. There was some discussion, I think it was Lon, and I can't remember who the other person was. From my interpretation of the minutes, it seemed like they wanted to leave it. There wasn't a consensus on to change it, I guess is what I would, so I didn't adjust the language based on that conversation.
You want to change it, Jason? Greg, did you have a comment?
No, go ahead.
I thought we did decide to change something in there.
We did at one point.
I thought
But-
so as well. I thought we landed on simplifying this a little bit was the end.
I think we put.
So maybe that's a minor edit.
Does anybody have the
So-
language that we were changing it to?
So the first thing I said was that we would take out except where allowed by ordinance. Meaning that this is just a general thing that in our city, we're gonna promote accessibility to all residents. And we are not going to allow private streets and gated communities within our city. And so we took off that last one and that's where it ended. And Lon went out, Lon came back in and made a comment, well, what if we just say streets accessible and open to all, or something like that?
I think it was dropping the second half, promote streets accessible to all residents. And that was,
Shane has gone to grab his notes, so to see if he can come up
Yeah.
with the language that we agreed to.
I think the concern was we have a couple of streets that are currently private streets and won't change from that.
Yeah, and I've looked in the ordinance and to me, I think those are not private streets in my opinion. Those are private driveways. And so it's like, we're trying to use that as an excuse, but ultimately, we have to ask ourselves as a council, what do the citizens want in this?
Yeah.
And would the citizens prefer us not allowing private streets in our city and gated communities? And if so, then we should think seriously about putting it in here.
Well, and I think if there's a concern for people who are on a private street, then if they are officially on a private street today, it would be grandfathered in. Wouldn't necessarily be eliminated.
But I think
So
Jason's
moving
right,
forward,
though.
I
We have-
do recall in the previous meeting, Shane brought up the private streets and he brought up the senior housing, so like River Meadows,
Mhm.
the Montdella, all of these, those are private streets. So we do allow for private streets in our ordinance if another senior housing development were to come in.
So do we have any private streets outside of the senior housing develop or senior housing overlay?
Yeah, is it an overlay issue?
Are there other private streets, Shane?
No, there are a couple of existing ones, but our.
But we wouldn't allow,
ordinance
under the
doesn't allow
current
them.
ordinance, it would only be in the senior housing overlay.
I think that's why I suggested that we just keep it simple, like promote streets accessible to all residents.
Yep, what my notes show, I had everything crossed out, but promote streets accessible to all citizens, period. That was it.
Would we benefit as a city spelling it out more clearly?
Yeah, is
So
it,
maybe what
Do
we
we
do.
ever want to have gated communities within our city limits?
No, but, so maybe what we need to do, oh, just left. Okay, so maybe what we want to do is reword it and say, instead of having it say on the last part, except where allowed by ordinance, say except where allowed in the senior citizen overlay. Because that's where the majority is, and the other ones that are already existing, they'll be grandfathered in and historic. Going forward, then we wouldn't be able to.
And to your point of Shane saying that's the only one we have, and again, I define that as a private driveway, but if that's what it is, typically, that's what we're gonna define it as a road, then yeah, that solves that problem.
So how about we do it with
So
that?
moving
being
forward. Okay.
Because the ordinance. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so.
Shane,
the
go
la-
ahead, sorry.
Sorry, just to clarify then, so the language would be except where allowed in the senior housing overlay? Is that
Correct.
kind of what we're,
So then
okay,
it's very specific
Mhm.
to that area.
Well, if we say that, we need to say the assisted living also, because they have, for example, like the facility on Red Pine Drive, they have the assisted living facility and then the cottage units.
Isn't that part of the senior citizen
They're
overlay?
two separate ordinances.
Gotta make it difficult.
That's before I had suggested unless allowed by ordinance, and it covered all of those things. So unless they were allowed somewhere in the ordinance, they would be disallowed. But we kind of kicked that language around and came up with this other simple statement.
So what do you want to see? Like, can you think of a better way to word it?
Let me ask this question. Is that the extent of your feedback, Jason? Do you
Yeah.
have other things?
Well, only from this thing of, except we're allowed by ordinance, implies that at any time, 3 people can vote over 2 people to allow for private drives and change, or private or gated communities and change the ordinance at any time.
Yeah.
So it's not really doing what I feel like the general plan is supposed to do, which is give us direction on how to make our ordinance even.
Well, we could, if you wanted to, we could pull the language from the assisted living overlay ordinance and the senior housing overlay ordinance and put that they're allowed in those
Within that.
situations or something like that.
Without- So except we're allowed in the senior citizen overlay and the assisted living.
We could pull that up real quick and look
If we
at
think
it,
that's
see what
needed,
the
yeah.
language is.
Yeah, I agree that we shouldn't use the language unless permitted by ordinance. Because it does imply that a new ordinance or an ordinance could be interpreted or rewritten to allow it. And we all know that an ordinance can be rewritten, right? But it goes through a process as opposed to
And
by request.
really the same holds true for the general plan. The
Yeah.
same people that might want to do that could change the general plan to allow private streets. So I don't know, however you'd like us to address it, we can.
But as again, the general plan is a statement of where we want to be. I don't think we need to include language that says unless otherwise allowed by ordinance. It's just a statement of what we want. So Austin, question for you. To Will's point earlier, is there anything that we haven't discussed openly in the general plan, in the revisions, that would be what people would consider to be a change? Because right now, we've discussed this for so long that I'm not sure what it was to begin with. And I want to make sure that we don't have anything in here that people may not feel informed about.
You know, I would say on the land use map, what was brought up tonight, that could be deemed a more significant change that wasn't something that we haven't seen before. This language here, we're really just tweaking language that's been here for actually several years now in the different drafts that we've discussed. So I don't feel like we're changing anything significantly than what we've been discussing openly and having public hearings on.
Okay, good.
Are you changing 1.7 then? From what it's reading right now?
We have an unofficial question from the audience.
And that's why this is a public hearing tonight.
Yeah. So we've concluded the public hearing, but if you have a question, come on up and address it, please.
Well, if this is how it was written in the plan before and you're changing, that's not been discussed, especially the changes you're discussing now, and that would need to go out for public hearing.
Right.
So
So
they would need to be aware of that.
yeah, okay, thank you very much. But just to clarify, that's not necessarily a matter of general plan, in my opinion. Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but designating that as open space or park was based on an agreement we had previously, and it is no longer in effect. And to take it off is perfectly within the general plan because it's designated as half-acre lots anyway, which is what it'll revert to.
Yeah, I think Shane explained it absolutely correct, that if the developer comes in and it's on the general plan for the park, it's gonna say, pay me $1.98 and I'll leave it there. Or if we choose not to pay the $1.98, then it comes out. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
If we can get it for that.
Yeah.
I was thinking of $2.98, you know, or whatever.
But I think Mr. Lunford was talking about 1.7 related to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was.
Is that sorry, I was looking at the ordinance. Is that the part talking about private streets? Yes. So let me tell you what the ordinance says. Both the senior housing overlay zone and assisted living and nursing care overlay zones refer to these as private travelways. So for example, this in the senior housing overlay, private travelways shall provide safe and convenient vehicular movement to and from all off-street parking spaces. Private travelways shall not be less than 20 feet width of asphalt.
So that's not I mean, that's just curiosity. Is that a private road? That to me is different than a private road, a private travelway between
It could be.
garages.
I've always thought of them as private streets because there's kind of streets and then there's driveways, but that's just how it's worked in my mind. So.
But I guess a private drive, like we've always talked about private driveways, right? Obviously, we've got this 8-acre parcel that we're dealing with over in Blue Bison. It's a private driveway. We've never referred to those as streets before, even though by definition, it's a private travelway, just like what you read just now. So that's my point. I think we're saying they're roads when they're not roads. They're both the exact same private travelways, which is a private drive.
Craig, what do you think?
And by that same token, could any street then become a private travelway? I mean, does that defeat the objective here?
The answer is probably not, because they're dedicated on most subdivision plats as public roads.
Yeah.
And I just asked Austin the question. Delivery of public services, i.e. snow removal. Austin says we don't do snow removal there. So that's either a private driveway, private access. I don't know if it's a private street. I don't think it goes that far.
But it's defined in our ordinance as a travelway. That was the terminology used. The terminology used wasn't street
Road.
or road, it was travelway. So that's clearly been a thought through.
Are you talking about as far as like demarcating it and differentiating between a street and a travel way? So anything's private, it's gonna be a private travel way, a public street. So are you more concerned about a public street going private? Or anything
Public-
going forward?
Going
not to
forward?
happen?
Yeah, I mean, But I get both, but mostly this is a forward-looking document. And the reason why we're having this discussion only is because, again, if we say we have private streets in our city already, do we? And it doesn't sound like we do, even though we've been hurt. It's a private driveway is still a private travel way by definition.
We have some private streets, I would call them private streets that predate our current ordinance. Like Oak Lane up off High Bench Road, like Orchard Lane off of Alpine Boulevard. There's another, I'm trying to think of it.
I actually think those are
Paradise.
driveways, so.
Paradise Lane.
They're driveways because the way the parcels of land operate is they move across the driveway. They're not, there isn't an easement or the way the ownership of that land is.
There actually is in some cases, like the Paradise Lane, I believe on the plat, it's shown as a private street. I think Orchard Lane's the same way. And I think even Oakie Lane. Oak Lane or whatever they call it up there.
So I would propose again, just taking off that those last 5 words.
Okay. So whoever is preparing a motion for this plan, I would ask you to include that language.
But to Mr. Lunford's point, do you need to have a public hearing if we change something like that at this meeting right here? Just for his.
Not necessary.
Mayor, yes, to Mr. Lunsford's point or question, the original current existing general plan does not have that wording in it at all. So this was a new, in the very beginning when this was being worked on, that 1.7 is new and has been presented to the Planning Commission and through the process. I'm pretty sure on that, but I'm looking at the current general plan and it isn't in there.
Okay. Any further discussion on the plan as it's written? Do you feel like we can make a motion for or against tonight with those changes? Somebody comfortable bringing that motion up?
One further question then, as Will brought up the master plan on the Bowery, can we include that? And then change that
As an exhibit?
as an exhibit?
Well, in my mind, it's currently not adopted.
Yeah.
It went through the planning commission, but Austin couldn't find a record of it being adopted at the city council level. And so I think we need to kind of finish that up.
So we can amend the plan later with that exhibit.
And again, I don't think it has to go in there. We're using these as exhibits because they're existing plans that we already have adopted, but we can go create some other master plan for some little park and not necessarily include it in here.
Yeah,
that's
true. Fine.
Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion. Juan, you're the only one that's writing.
Okay, we'll start. I make a motion that we approve the general plan with the following changes. That 1.8 in the transportation, or excuse me, sorry. The land use plan,
2.8.
yeah. In the land use portion that
And Ron, you got that was 2.8.
2.8 be struck. That we remove the proposed open space located at the Smooth Canyon area on the land use map. That we remove the word more out of 1.2 in the moderate income housing section. And Jessica, I did not write down what you'd suggested. Was everyone okay with the
The tradition, addition
Yeah.
of tradition.
Alpine traditions.
okay. On goal 1 of the community engagement, after events, Alpine traditions be inserted.
Fix our page numbers too.
And fix the page numbers.
Lon, can I add to your motion? As and that resolution R 2021-18 be adopted.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
What's that one?
That is the resolution.
I got 18.
Oh,
I got it.
yeah.
Oh, I'm 18.
I see.
Right here.
Okay. Okay. The resolution 2021
-17
is the one that I'm making a motion on. Be adopted.
Where does it say that?
It is the resolution that is this document.
Yep.
So you don't want to reword 1.7?
Oh, that's right. Jason, I did not have that note.
Are you finished with your motion?
No, I
It hasn't been
didn't.
seconded yet.
I need to go to that page because I did have that.
Page 13.
Yeah, were you good with simplifying it like I suggested last time?
I proposed getting rid of the last 5 words.
Get rid,
I concur.
yeah. Striking.
Put a period instead of the comma.
Okay. I guess we'd have to have more discussion on that one, I guess, because because I would prefer the simplified version of it that I had suggested last time, which would be striking by prohibiting all private streets and gated communities except where allowed by ordinance, and just simply promote streets accessible to all citizens. That's what I would suggest.
Well, we disagree on that.
Well, can I make one comment real quick on that?
That mayor's in charge of that,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'll have to have you hold on for just a minute, please. I don't even know who asked that question. Oh, give us just a minute, please. We've got a motion pending.
So I don't know then, because I do want to change that in the motion. Can we get a second and have discussion?
Yeah, we can. And we can also have an amendment to the motion and accept that if it's made. So are you finished with your motion?
So I'd be finished with my motion.
Okay,
then.
before we get, well,
Yeah,
do we
I'll
have a
second.
second? Okay, we have a second, motion made by Lon Lot. Greg Gordon has seconded it. Bonnie, could you please read it back? Yes, thank you.
I'll do my best. Lon Lot moved to approve the resolution R 2021-17 general plan with the following amendments. Land use portion 2.8 be struck. Also remove remove the proposed smooth canyon land use map.
Open, actually, it would be
Sorry.
not the land use map.
Proposed part.
Proposed part.
Remove the proposed smooth canyon land
Open
use.
space
Open
from the land
Proposed
use map.
open space
Open
on the land
space.
use map.
On the land use map be removed. The word more be removed from the modern income housing.
On goal number 1, add Alpine traditions. And then fix the page numbers on the general plan, or sorry, on the general plan, and then change 1.7 to promote streets accessible to all residents, period. Seconded by Craig.
Was that correct on the last point?
Citizens. Residents.
I think
we
we
went to
changed that
citizens.
to residents.
Residents, it should be residents.
Okay.
Residents is appropriate for community
We
members.
removed citizens throughout the entire document and just referred to them
Okay.
as residents to be consistent.
Yep. Everybody's a citizen. The people who live here are residents. Okay,
Okay.
so we have a motion and a second. Jason, I'll turn the time over to you to give some thoughts on the language used in that one.
So just a hypothetical back, based on promote streets accessible to all residents, period. Does that include driving? Meaning if someone had a gated community but had let them people walk on the sidewalk into their thing and come back around, is that something that would be acceptable based on what you said?
Yeah, so you're trying to clarify that very.
Yeah, if it's accessible to residents, does that mean walking, biking, driving?
Yeah, it could open it up to
It's
everything.
a
It
good
could.
point.
Yeah, it is
because
a good point.
You
I
could
agree.
claim to have access, but it's really private for people to drive up. They can't drive it. Therefore, those who can only drive don't have access.
And is that what
Yeah.
you want, is what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, so the question then would be, do we even want it in at all? I know we brought it in as a result of your concern, because that it hasn't been in there in the past, and I do remember you bringing that one up. So is it a concern?
I think it is. It's enough that I would want it in there.
What would happen? Where is this going to be?
I don't know. But it is, I mean, why not have it in there? What would be the harm to prohibit private streets and gated communities?
I know that we've had people request it before. Lon Neild requested it for his property. It didn't get past the planning commission. We're going to have potentially annexation requests come in that might want to do something similar to it. You never know. So.
And I know some other recent ones, but
I think the
it's a general
citizens would want that.
question, yeah.
Okay. Other thoughts then?
I feel like it should be more definitive. I feel like when you leave it too open, it becomes more of an interpretive issue. And to Jason's point a minute ago, you could easily say there's access, but really there's not. If it's accessible on foot, but not by car, that's not an accessible street. That's an accessible footpath. And so I think it helps button up who we want to be.
I think it's more clear and more definitive.
So what would be the wording that you would,
Just end with and gated communities.
yeah.
So is there a proposal for an amendment to the motion?
So I have one more also.
Okay.
As far as a Smooth Canyon land use map, taking the park out, I don't see what the harm is having it in there. I get it. You guys as the property owners it's, designated as half-acre lots. You can come and develop in half-acre lots. But me as a citizen and a city council person, I would like to see the park there. And I just want that conveyed. I totally understand that you as a property owner have the right to develop how you want. And if we are not willing to pay for it, that's fine. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having that. We would like to see that.
We're not requiring.
Well,
No, we're not requiring it.
and that's what I was gonna add, because it gives the option at that point to say, hey, do you guys want this? Do you want to buy this? Why remove the option if it gives us It doesn't impact
It's
them at
not.
all. It just
I
gives
don't-
the city and the residents an option.
The counter to that argument, I'm sorry, Lon, go ahead.
So question then to Craig would be, we've, 2 days ago or a day ago, a plan has been presented to us, a proposed plan for that property, and we haven't adopted this yet. Is there a legal requirement for us not to adopt it because of that proposed plan?
The general rule in the Land Use Planning Act, LUDMA, says if an application comes in that is substantially complete at the time of submittal, the rules in play are the rules in play on that day. That would be 2 days ago.
In which case that was designated already, wasn't it?
In a preliminary matter a couple of weeks ago, sure. That was the direction given to Austin a couple of weeks ago to put it in.
I'm thinking of the previous agreement. So since that was absolved, now it's no longer in there until we put it back in, correct?
You'd have to put it back in.
All right. So the argument on the other side is that if it is included in the plan and people read the plan and people move into the area not realizing how things can go, what the legal obligation is, then people are going to be upset if a park doesn't go in, potentially. So it sends a message that here's where we're planning to have a park, even though it may or is likely not to happen.
Well, and there's no timeline. Why can't we, pass it as is? If that goes through, then we amend it. I mean, that's what we're gonna do with any of the exhibits, and it's just another exhibit, right?
Sure. And to your point, most residents think that there is gonna be a park up there. And it's one thing for us to take it off the plan and everyone's wondering what for. It's another thing for it to leave it on the plan, but then explain for us to move forward, we either have to create this as a PRD and give something to the developer for that PRD, or we have to purchase it. And then if we pull it off based on those decisions, there's reasoning behind it, I think too.
Good. All right. Just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, so we have an amendment, or I'm sorry, we have a motion.
So I move to amend Lon's amendment to change the wording on 1.7 on page 13, I believe.
Yes.
To read promote streets accessible to all residents by prohibiting all private streets and gated communities, period. And then to not remove the open space on the Smooth Canyon land use map, to leave it there.
Okay. Lon, do you accept that amendment to your motion?
So that addresses both the two concerns. Could I, Mayor, could I ask you to ask Mr. Lunsford to make a comment that he said he wanted to make?
Sure. Yeah, come on up, Mr. Lunsford.
It'll be brief. I don't feel like there's been a public hearing on this, so I want to go on record just stating that there should be a public hearing on making a change to 1.7.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, then maybe, Mayor, could you reopen the public hearing for that?
Yeah, that's my intention.
That point,
That's my
because this has been noticed as a public hearing and 1.7 has been out there.
Yep, thank you.
And I'm totally fine with that, but just for point of clarification, when a public hearing is here, we can still make modifications to the document afterwards without opening up a public hearing. So
we can.
Mr. Lunsford can have that opinion, but we could go right now and we could approve it, and we're not, and we've done everything we're supposed to. I'm for opening it up again.
We're going to have a 2-minute to 3-minute public hearing as I open it back up, because I want to get on to other topics that we have tonight. So Greg, is that agreeable to you to
The amendment? Yeah, I'm
Okay.
fine with the second.
Mayor, I have a concern. Ms. Miller only made changes on an amended motion with 2 items, and she left out the rest of the items that Mr. Lott had indicated in his motion. So would you accept all of the other items
Okay.
Except
for the 2 that you made in the amendment?
Thanks,
The
Greg.
amended motion would include everything what Mr. Lott has included, except for the 2 items that I previously mentioned.
Did you get that, Bonnie? Okay. Any further questions on the motion? Okay,
I,
So,
I will, I
You
will
will,
accept
okay.
that amendment then.
so I'm going to pause. Normally I would take a vote right now. And I'm going to take 2 minutes to receive any more comments on the amended motion, if you have any.
Sarah Blackwell, 457 Eastview Drive. I actually like Jason's idea of keeping that wording in there. I like the idea of keeping all roads open to all residents. And who knows down the road if someone will want to turn a community into a private community. And I would like to keep it open.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
I know I'm unpopular, but that's all right. So I'm not against keeping everything open as well. I actually prefer it. I like Alpine the way it is. I am concerned with residents and or non-residents entering North Fork Canyon and Three Falls Way and fires being started in the evenings. I'm concerned about it up there. We all should be somewhat concerned about it and figuring out ways to prevent people from accessing those roads where there's extreme fire hazards in those areas where homes are being built currently right now. And so I think that that needs to be into consideration. I don't feel like there's proper notice given here tonight for a public hearing on this issue. I think that's pretty fast, and that typically there needs to be a notice when there's going to be changes to a plan. Maybe you have gone through the process. I'm not aware of it.
We have gone through the process. So just to
Okay.
be clear, we have.
I've just
gone
been
through it.
texting a lot of people, and several people have said that they've not heard any public notice about this language being put into this master plan. So I'm not the only one that has not heard about it tonight. I wasn't even here for this issue tonight. I was here for the Hawks Hollow issue tonight, but I'm concerned about access, and there's already been a history of this occurring up in the Three Falls area. I'm not saying a gate should be put in there, but there does need to be some considerations on how to figure out how to prevent that type of activity from occurring.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, just as a way Weston is, the language that's in here has been in here for probably going on a year and a half. It's just the last, yeah, it's just, but with that said, for example, Three Falls Way currently by ordinance does not allow for a private street or any of those type of things in there as well. So this doesn't really change anything with relationship to where you live, because currently by ordinance, it's not allowed to have a private street up the Three Falls Road.
Right, but this change is significant in the fact that it takes the voting requirements to change an ordinance. And so this basically removes that option now.
We would require that anyway, because it's an
Well,
ordinance.
You're
that's not allowed.
removing those words though, then say, keep the sentence except where allowed by ordinance.
But it's only allowed under change of ordinance today. When we would have to go through the process to allow any private
It
road.
just seems weird why you would be taking out those words, change of ordinance. Why remove them then?
This is an implication of where we want to be. It's not an ordinance itself.
The general plans and advisory document
Mhm.
are other ordinances specify you can do this, or this, and the specifics of that.
So in the current plan right now as written, does it say except where allowed by ordinance?
No, it does not.
Okay, and is 1.7 in the current plan today?
No, it is not.
Okay, so this is a change that I guess I'm just going on record again, that there's not been a public hearing on this change.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to conclude that portion of our public hearing. So I'm going to go back to Craig and ask, do you see any legal challenges with the process we've been through so far?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
This is probably the 6th or 7th time that I've listened to discussion on the general plan over the last several months. I believe that language has been there. It was noticed for a public hearing tonight.
Mhm.
And I'm very comfortable with the process.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Welch, you have 30 seconds and I'm timing you.
Once I'm at the microphone.
Just quickly.
Is Smooth Canyon currently in the general plan for the Sunset Mountain properties as park? No. Just to clarify that for you, Jason. So it's currently not in there. It hasn't been vetted through the normal process for where we're going to invest our money in parks. Hasn't been through the planning commission for this. That's the point. I think we've jumped to this point.
I've got a question.
Is that my 30 seconds, by the way, Mayor?
You got 9 seconds.
Russ, what, I don't understand why do you care so much? Help me understand.
I really get back to the point the mayor made earlier, which I think is people look at it and go, oh, there's gonna be a park here. Probably won't be. So why even put it down? If you want it, and if you go through the process and say, then go buy it. It goes both ways, doesn't
No,
it?
I
Like either
totally
way,
agree. I
right?
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And when I made that, I stated that you as the property owners have that right. I'm not putting any restrictions on you and your ability to develop that property.
Right.
It's zoned for half acres. You guys come in with half acres. I'm totally okay with that.
Right.
And I think most of us are, I think all of us are pretty much okay with
Right.
that. I guess that's where I don't understand. To me, it just looked,
It just seemed
It
odd
was
that
something
it
that was-
seems like, a couple of weeks ago, all of a sudden, we're just saying, oh yeah, we're gonna make it a park now.
no, to me, it was something that was left out of the general plan. I'm like, oh, why isn't it here? Because I had always talked about it. Let's put it in.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden you guys came out, I'm like, what's going on?
And so we're saying, this is
There
where,
isn't
if
any-
we're gonna spend our money, this is where we want to park in our community.
If we
If we had the
did,
opportunity, we
but
would.
That's
Yeah.
this is your number one spot you'd want to park.
No, that's
It's
not-
saying that.
that's not that.
Well,
It's
no,
just
it's
that
when you've
this is-
added, you putting it
this
in
is-
there to say this.
Because no, the reason that I wanted to put it in there was because I always thought it was in there, honestly. And then when I looked at it, it was like, hey, why isn't that park in there? And I'm like, let's put it in there. That's the intent.
okay.
It's only to show intent. It's not to bind your hands.
And my
It's
only
not to
thing, it
do
seems a
anything.
little, it didn't seem like it went through the vetting process, I would think, for our planning of parks. That's just,
Okay.
But anyway, understand.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
well outside the rules of
And-
order right now anyway, so I got to get going.
We
with the
still got
vote.
it. I'm gonna just say one last thing. Cheesy Gordy the Crunch.
Okay, you're responsible for the one time I've eaten at Taco Bell in the last 30 years, by the way. Okay, we have a motion, and Lon, do you have comments before we make
Yeah,
that
Mayor,
motion?
I'd like to
Take a
address
vote.
Craig again on this, just to clarify of the timing, the time events of them putting in application, us today making the change. I guess I didn't understand what you said.
Okay,
The rules that were in play when he submitted, as Austin has just told me, a substantially completed application was 2 or 3 days ago.
Right.
The rules in play 2 or 3 days ago are the rules by which we will review, approve, deny, or modify the application.
and I think we're getting
And the
wrapped
rules
around
in
the
play-
axle on this because it's inconsequential, really, either way. It's inconsequential because the landowner has every right to develop without the park today or yesterday. or
Yeah,
the
we
day
have,
before.
as I understand it, we have no ordinances
even
or
tomorrow.
requirements for him to put the park in. He has to, we have to do it, offer him the $1.98, and then if he doesn't like it, condemn it, and then we'll settle for $2.98.
Lonnie,
so
even if
here's-
he came in next month, it would still be the same. He would
Yeah.
be able to do the exact same plat that he put in. There's no difference.
It really is, that has no consequence. So with that in mind, I'd like to move forward with the vote because we've got other things to discuss. And I think we've exhausted that point. Motion on the table to accept the master plan with a couple of amendments and also with some additions. I'm sorry, just amendments. Is there any further question before we
Just
take
one
that vote?
quick thing that's very simple. The resolution that's in your packet didn't have the box here of who voted which way. So it has been updated. Everything else, the body of it's the same.
Okay,
So,
so that'll be recorded
yeah.
by Bonnie. All in favor, please say aye. Yeah, you're right. It's a we'll call vote, beginning with Jason. Aye.
Greg Gordon, yes.
Carla Merrill, yes.
Jessica Smuin, yes.
Lon Lot, yes.
Okay, the motion passes. We have an updated master plan. Thank you, everybody. That was an exhaustive effort, literally years in the making. Okay, we're gonna move on. Okay, before I move into the discussion on our next item, which is the conservation easement, and make a couple of explanations, but I'm also going to invite some of you who I know have come to make comments. We're going to get bogged down in comments, and we've heard a lot of the same thing in past meetings. So I'm going to encourage you on whether you're on one side or the other to discuss with each other and come up with 2 designated speakers for your point of view. And to each of those designated speakers, you will get 3 minutes to make comments. Now, to be clear, we are not required to provide public comment on this meeting, on this topic. We have done so in several past meetings. I'll give you those dates because I know some of you have asked that question. But in order to move forward or backward on an issue, we need to be more efficient and streamlined. And to hear the same things redundantly doesn't really help us in that process. At the same time, we want to hear your thoughts as they are condensed into 2 speakers on either side. So that in mind, Shane, I was looking for one more date that you were going to get from me.
Yeah, I kind of got sidetracked.
We don't
there.
have that.
I'll look.
Okay, so just to introduce this topic and the process that we've been through so far. On the discussion for a conservation easement for Lambert Park, which I personally believe to be a benefit to all people in Alpine. To all people in Alpine. It is not a detriment to anyone. Now, there are certain aspects of it that some people may or may not agree with. But on the whole, this is an effort to preserve something that almost all of us consider to be one of the crown jewels of Alpine, and to considerably save it for the long term so that our children and their children can enjoy it. That sounds a little sappy maybe, but it's really how I feel. And this is something, and you can shake your head all you want to, but it is something that a lot of people in Alpine genuinely feel. And in my experience in running for office now 4 times in this city, that has been expressed to me as the #1 priority by the vast majority of people I've spoken to. And so with respect to those who disagree with that point of view, that's why we're here. And that's why the process has extended out the way that it has. We want to be respectful, but that doesn't mean that we're going to change our direction based on every point of view. We're going to take what we feel is the representative of the majority of the people of our city and move in that direction, because that is our obligation as elected officials. And in many cases, that has been clearly stated by a very large percentage of our community. And so again, with respect, we will move forward with the process. Just to be clear, some have questioned the process as it is to date. We've been working on this for most of this year. It isn't a new issue. It hasn't just been sprung on anyone. And anyone who has been willing to look at the process and be involved in the process has been encouraged to do so. And this dates back to, okay, some of these, so I need us to look for the open house, not the open house, but the date that the public hearing was held in city council. I believe it was in June. That's the one date I don't have. And in August and in September, we had an open house in each of those 2 months. So 2 public open houses. We had public work sessions that the public was encouraged to come and participate in, ask questions, and make comments in on September 28th, again in October on the 12th and on the 26th, and again on the 9th. We had a public hearing and planning commission on the 16th of November. I spoke about the conservation easement in my mayor's message to the community in February. We've had several conversations about the conservation easement, its benefits, its restrictions, and the direction we were going since really since March of this year. It's been very public. And so to that point, we're going to begin a conversation about a resolution that we have on the table tonight. While we discuss that, I would encourage you to decide who is going to speak, those 2 people, if you'd like to speak, and be cognizant of the fact that we have been working on a document for quite some time now. The other comment I would make is our legal counsel has been very involved in this process from the beginning. We have involved other community members. And what you see before you tonight on our agenda is not a conservation easement. It is a resolution to continue working toward a conservation easement. It does not name any language. It does not provide any requirement for us to accept any language. It is simply a resolution that states We will continue to work toward a conservation easement so long as we see that it is the right direction for the community. And so for people to claim that we're voting on something tonight that nobody's had a chance to see would be erroneous. It would also be erroneous to claim that we have not provided the public ample opportunity for input. So I would encourage you that when you speak about these things, that you speak accurately and factually. And of course, we want to hear your opinion. With that,
July 13th.
July 13th. Okay. If you'd like to, I mean, we'll give you a few minutes and we won't discuss anything very important while you make that decision. If you'd like to go ahead and meet right now. Basically, we'll consider this a caucus.
So if you're against, as a general rule, we should probably have a discussion. If you're for, I would encourage you to have a discussion. Can you just give us a summary of what's going to transpire with this, with the conservation?
Yes.
And how the land will be used going forward?
Yeah, so just to be clear again, we haven't established the language. We are discussing it and that's been published. So everybody has had an opportunity for the last month or so to see the language, but that language is not final. So we're continuing to evolve and develop a plan that's amicable for everyone. And with a few things in mind that are very important, that the city retains ownership and control. Those are the two primary points of the agreement, in addition to preserving the natural state of the park. That makes sense? Okay. I'm going to take a bio break real quick.
So I don't think anything's so they're still gonna like paint charts, I think, because they need to be done anyway. So they're gonna have to use it. Am I correct? They were gonna paint it they made a motion. So I just felt like but not to make it separate. Still be, yeah, it'll still be tennis. They have to bring their own.
It's about half or 2/3.
So maybe it's not a full.
The width is about 2/3.
Coming up.
So we got a house in St. George and a complex that just turned one tennis court into full-size basketball court. So it's about 2/3.
Because I know like in the States, you can put 3 courts.
But would you have to take down the tennis?
No, you didn't completely finish it.
Yeah, but I just, you still have to reach
You have to move, and actually, my brother.
They're probably not regulated.
It's probably not.
Who cares?
Let the people have fun.
I can't figure out scores.
Oh, come on, it's not that hard. Get past the first point.
Good, right. Why don't we just go 1, 2, 3?
It's off the first. Well, I remember it was delayed like a year or something, just trying to get something back. Yeah, and it's fine, I'm fine. They just report it. So that was sort of the proposal.
They're still they're complaining about it, but it was. The healing reports were already.
So is it the issue? Have you got a guy under contract that's available?
City council chooses, city council chooses.
We're fine. I had a thought when you were introducing this. We just mark X's. I don't remember. I'll send you a note. So I was in St. George this week. Went down to the baseball teams. We played.
Okay, if I could ask everybody to take your seat, please. If Carla Merrill's in the building, you're being called to the principal's office.
The lights don't go off till 10 o'clock. And the noise.
It's okay.
When we hit it.
Okay, everyone. If we could please have order. Thank you. It's my last chance to use that thing. Okay. I have an hour. It's going to be a gavel happy hour. Okay, everyone. Appreciate your time in coming in tonight. A couple more comments about what's on the table this evening. Again, to reiterate, this is merely to establish that we are committed to continuing with the process, that we will continue to look at language that is a win-win for the community. A couple of things I may have said a minute ago, but I'll say it again. The primary objective of spending so much time on a conservation easement is certainly to consider citizen input, resident input. But it's also to make sure that we have certain priorities in mind. And those were listed, well, they still are core values. That'll always continuously be used as a public open space, recreation and preservation of beauty in our city. Secondly, that the city will always retain control over the land and ownership. And that's a very important point because there's a lot of chatter about ownership. The ownership under the agreement that we're considering at this point is guaranteed to remain under Alpine City. And it's also guaranteed to be managed by Alpine City with management agreement that will be designed, that will be created at a later date. So I've made a couple of suggestions to Craig in the construction of this document. And there are 3 words to change the to a. So in the document, down in the second to last paragraph, it says, whereas the city has held several open houses, public meetings, and public hearings in which city residents have weighed in on the specific and general features of a conservation easement instead of the. And the reason I want that changed is because I think the word "the" implies that we already have the conservation easement, that we've already arrived at a conclusion of the language and the purpose. In the first paragraph of the second page, whereas the city council desires to make known its intent to move forward with a conservation easement. And in the last line of the last paragraph, upon review of an acceptable easement document. So clearly, upon review of an acceptable easement document and management plan, the city council fully intends to authorize execution and recording of a conservation easement for the benefit of the city and its residents. And to be clear, that is after the process is over. So I read to you some of the dates that we've used, where we've held events in the past, public meetings, open houses, work sessions, public hearings. There will be more in the future. And just to clarify, by state statute, we are only required to have one public hearing. We've had 2 so far, and we'll have more. And that'll be up to Mayor, what do I call you?
Meryl.
Madam Mayor, Mayor Merrill to orchestrate. And so there will be further public input. But we have fulfilled our legal requirement. We're not satisfied with that. We're going to continue forward. And so for those of you who want to have more public input, you'll continue to have those opportunities. So with that said, I'll call on the public comment here in just a moment, but I would like to have a quick round with council on concerns or thoughts about the document that's in front of us. I'll start with Lonnie.
Actually, I'm ready to make a motion. If you want. I'm actually make a motion that we table this and proceed with the direction we all agreed with in having the planning commission do their part in this and then allow public participation.
So you don't think we've allowed public participation?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. Okay.
But I allow more public participation.
Okay, so I'll allow the motion, but we'll continue to have conversation. So is that your motion to table it?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to table by Lon. And so we'll discuss the motion or the contents of the letter, the resolution.
Mayor, I understand the motion to table though is that further discussion is done. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
We've never done that before, but okay.
Actually, that's not the case at all. I don't know
Yeah.
where that's coming.
Help me
from.
out, Jason.
Yeah, that's not the case at all.
On a motion to table, it's non-debatable and it's
Well,
yes or no.
Anyone can make a motion at the very beginning of a discussion. Matter of fact, they encourage us to make the motion and then have discussions thereafter to help facilitate the discussion process. This is how we've been advised by our previous attorney. Unless somehow the table to motion is different than another motion to do something else, I think both of them were encouraged to make the motion at the very beginning and have discussion thereafter. So that's
is
new to
true.
me if I hear that.
My understanding is a motion to table is non-debatable, non-discussable. And once it's been seconded, you need to call a vote. Now, that's one of the few motions that are non-debatable.
And that's good to know. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
It is good to know because it's not happened before.
Yeah, that's my recollection of as contained in Robert's Rules of Order. However, I don't believe this body has adopted formally Robert's Rules of Order. At least I've never been told we have that.
We try to act by it.
I know, most councils do, and that's good. But my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, but I think it's non-debatable and it calls for an up or down vote.
Okay, and just for clarification, this is not to preclude any activity by the planning commission. This is just saying the city council will remain
I
active.
understand.
Okay, so with that being the case, then we'll come to a vote. All in favor of tabling the motion or the tabling the document, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
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 Motion fails. Okay. Now we can have the discussion.
Now you can. That's
Now we can.
good.
Those were all ayes. There were no nays.
Yeah.
We got ourselves a lawyer.
And
The motion failed 3-2.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
It does.
Thanks for the backup.
Unless you want to revote 13 times, go ahead. Here we go.
And actually, Mayor, it would have been unfortunate to make these people wait for 2 hours and 15 minutes and not discuss, so.
Right, I agree. Okay, so just for the record, the motion passed by a decision of 3-2. The dissenting votes were Lon Lot and Craig Gordon.
Motion failed.
Motion failed. Did I say something different?
You said
Opposite,
pass.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Motion failed.
Well, wouldn't you have rather me? Yeah. That wasn't very nice, was it?
But it was actually.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. You guys are great. Okay, so we're gonna have a discussion. I'm gonna lead off with, well, Lon made his motion. Go ahead, Jessica.
So my thoughts was as we sat here with a room full of people and we were looking at, what do trails and open space mean to Alpine? And it really defines us. And how are we in this position right now, losing access through Hog Hollow? We're in that position because there was a council in another community that sold off a large portion of land. And that community actually came together, and after the city council sold that land, they said, this is not acceptable and we want a conservation easement. And that's our neighbor Draper. They have thousands and thousands of acres in a conservation easement. It is a common standard of practice to protect trails and open space in perpetuity. There's nothing scary about it. People want, the community want, our residents want our trails and open space protected, as you can see with the turnout this evening, by just the idea of removing access and what that means. As I look at this resolution, I really like this resolution because it removes a lot of the questions. One of the big questions, and I appreciate everyone being here this evening to get answers, is why don't you just look at other options, look at other ways that you can preserve Lambert Park? So as a city council, a little bit of background to that, we went to our city attorney and we said, hey, here's our goals and objectives. Let's write an ordinance and make this happen. And our city attorney advised us and said, you cannot encumber a future council. So if this is the goal of your residents and this is something that you want as a community, let me tell you who the best and the brightest are. It's Utah Open Lands. They've been doing this for 30 years. So our city attorney advised us to go to the best and the brightest. And that's, another clarification that I think we get in this resolution. And whether it's Utah Open Lands or another entity that we find, Alpine residents deserve the best and the brightest when we're protecting those things that are important to us. The last point I want to make, if you look at, it's paragraph 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, it's 8. What we're asking Utah Open Lands to do is just to defend our conservation values, the values that you all come up with, that we've been getting input from for months and months. Lambert Park stays a natural open space. It's open for recreational usage, minimal improvements, minimal development. What Utah Open Lands will do is they'll defend those core values. They won't have any management, they won't have any ownership, but when it comes to protecting those things that are important to our community, we'll lean on them for their expertise. So I appreciate the resolution. I think it answers a lot of questions that the community's been having. And it clearly, there's transparency in our goals.
Okay, thank you. Carla?
No, a lot of the same things, obviously. I enjoyed Lambert Park through the years. I've been here for over 20 years and, the use has changed a little bit, but I do have concern about the wording of this resolution. And I was wondering if you guys would be amenable to where it says that the city council of Alpine City hereby expresses its intent to continue working on the conservation easement for the, or working towards. Because in my mind, we have to have, the conservation easement agreement document and also the management plan document completed before I really want to commit to anything. And part of the wording says that, but there's part of the wording on this that makes me feel like it's saying that we're gonna enter it into it no matter what. I agree, like, there is wording that says, upon an acceptable easement. But what I don't want to see is once the two documents are finished and it doesn't work out, or that it's not agreeable for the city or its citizens. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think
so the wording is problematic for me, the
Okay.
very first sentence of it, of the whereas, or therefore, I mean.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfectly acceptable, to me, to get to that point where it expresses intent and that the process hasn't worked out yet. It's down the
From what
road.
I understand from speaking with Craig and yourself before this meeting, that the purpose of this resolution is just to express intent that we are going to continue to work on this conservation easement, not to actually enter into it at this moment.
Correct.
Is that right, Craig?
That is absolutely correct. If I may, Mr. Nguyen, you indicated that the city retains ownership of everything. That is not technically correct because as you understand property rights, there's a bundle of property rights.
Yeah.
We are taking one of that bundle, that one straw that says you can't develop it, contrary to what the conservation easement ends up being. So we lose one straw of that bundle of rights.
How many straws are in the bundle?
Well, you've got the right of free enjoyment, you got the right to build. It may be subject to a public utility easement in a subdivision. You already lost that right. You've got air rights and that sort of thing. So there's many, many sticks. It's kind of like a broom. You take out one, one little straw.
So the right is just to not develop.
To not develop or to develop it contrary to the goals and the issues, the core values, the core values is set forth in the document itself in conjunction with the management plan, which we haven't started to work on because we're still waiting for some information from you to Open Lands.
Yeah, and to Carla's point, the management plan comes later, and but you're right. You're more comfortable passing it when you have both documents together.
For sure.
Mhm.
And that it's
Okay.
been fully vetted.
Good. Okay, great.
Yeah, so to be clear, I'm 100% supportive of preserving and protecting the park. I mean, I think that's a key goal that we definitely need to deliver on in the near future. I feel like there's a handful of places in here where it's a little strongly worded to maybe where we are in the process at this point. Biggest concern, I think, is in the 6th whereas, where it says city councils explore different options, etc. And I think the thing that I've heard most often that I find somewhat relevant is that people say, now whether it's true or not, and I'm highly inclined to believe that conservation easement and through Utah Open Lands is probably the best option to do so. But there, many people say there's other options. They say we could do it in another way that has less risk or provides more control. And so, I mean, I'd like to explore that further. And so that's just my concern right there, is that I feel like an LOI at this point goes just a little bit ahead of where we are in the process. But I think directionally, it's pretty much the right direction, and I think we're on the right track. But I think this gives us just a couple steps ahead of maybe where we are or need to be.
So great.
So that's a,
Yes. So to the point you just made, that some of the language is a little strong for you. Do you want to make suggestions on how to soften it?
yeah, well, possibly. Yeah, I could look for
And I can
something.
come back to you for that if you'd like.
Yeah, okay.
Jason.
Yeah, I think Carla's idea of this is, we are moving forward, you know, we, in Lon brought, you know, his initial motion kind of implies that as well. I will just say that obviously I just finished up an election cycle. I met with tons of people, had probably 14, 15 cottage meetings in the process. The overwhelming majority of responses I got were that they were for a conservation easement, that they wanted, and I walked them through the whole process. This isn't just, we get tons of emails, we get lots of different communications from people. Sometimes this room here isn't the only people we're hearing things from, we're hearing people, but I like the idea of a conservation easement. I didn't make it hidden or anything like that. That's who it is. I talked with a lot of the people over on this side, called up and talked with individuals there at great length, quite a few of them. And they know where I stand. And so that I am for that. I would like to address Ms. Collins's question at the very beginning where she asked what the planning commission's role was. Real briefly, I guess my experience was I was on the planning commission 12 years. And during that, when I first got on, I was kind of a pain, as Shane would probably say. If a developer wanted to come in and wanted to get higher density, I'd vote against it. And because legislatively, I can do that. What does the planning commission do? They help the city council make our life easier by vetting out a lot of the issues before it comes to us with new subdivisions. With new ordinances, they work with the city to make them as good as they can. But then they pass them on to the elected officials, and we decide what to take from what they passed and what they didn't. In the olden days, I used to say, I don't agree with increasing density, so I'm going to vote against it. And I'd vote against the subdivision because the planning commission can do that. The city council will then take it and send it back to me and said, well, you know what, we kind of want to do city, we want to increase density here. So that's the new thing. And it would come back to me and I said, nope, I'm voting against it because and Shane called me out on one of the meetings and explained to me, which was very valuable to me, is there's legislative things where I can say, I disagree with this. But once the city council addresses that issue and tells me, nope, we're moving forward this way, I have to put that over here and say, okay, they want it to be higher density. Now we're going to go through to figure out how to make the subdivision as good as it is. So what the relationship with the planning commission's role is, they had a discussion on it, and our goal was to get feedback from them. And when we got some feedback from them, we sat through the whole thing, and we're going to take that. But if at a certain point we tell the planning commission that we want to move forward with this, if at a certain point we tell the planning commission that we don't want to allow a road through Lambert, if we want to go that specific, the planning commission needs to move past and not vote against it based on that terms. That's the planning commission's role in this. The city council is the elected officials, and ultimately that's where the decision needs to happen. The planning commission is not elected officials, and they're here to help support us achieve our goals. And that's, I guess, at the highest level. And tell me if I'm missing something with the relationship to what the planning commission is, but that's what I learned from my experience in the planning commission.
Yeah, I mean, officially, the planning commission is the recommending body and the city council is the legislative body. And by definition, the recommending body is required to observe ordinances and laws and make sure that applications, that they follow those laws and ordinances. And if they don't, they make a recommendation against. If they do, they generally make a recommendation in favor of. Typically, in a situation like this, we required ourselves to go through the planning commission first, not first, but it can be first, it can be at the same time, but it is required to go before the planning commission. We do want to hear the recommendation, but there are several cases just in the last year alone where we have not necessarily followed the recommendation of the planning commission. Because again, as Jason said, we are a legislative body. And so the planning commission isn't the final decision, it's a recommendation to the council, and the council takes that into consideration as it goes through the process.
And to finalize, I'm grateful for the relationships I have, the people who disagree with me on it. We're able to still say, one of the great things about Alpine is we are supposed to be good neighbors to each other. And it's issues like this that make us turn mean. And we're trying to do the best we can, but we're not villains. We're trying to do the best we can for what we think is right. So I'm grateful for for even having disagreements, we're still able to be amicable and friends.
And comments have been made and people talk about things that, and it's great. I'm glad there's cross-pollination in the community. But there's not really any selfish or personal motivation for this because, for example, myself, and I know others in this group could say the same, I probably use Corner Canyon and Three Falls more than I do Lambert. In fact, I haven't ridden in Lambert for probably over a month. And so I don't think it's my own personal interest. Of course, I'm interested in protecting it. I want to make sure it's preserved, but I think it's being used by other people a lot more than it's being used by me. And I think this community would strongly regret failing to protect it down the road. Now, it's not saying that, and I've never said that it's under immediate threat. It's not. There's nobody who's saying, hey, can we sell Lambert Park or can we buy Lambert Park? That's not happening. It is not in our current plan to do so, and I don't think anybody on this council will allow that to happen. The circumstances change, elections change things. And for us to do the same thing that other communities have done again and again and again, using our neighbor, Draper as an example. Draper has over 4,000 acres tied up in conservation easement, and they're ready to do more. Why? Because it preserves a quality of life, because it guarantees that future generations will have that same quality of life. And also guarantees that developers can never take it over. Now, I don't know how many of you have kids who recreate, but to give those kids a place to recreate for the long term and for generations, and to guarantee that, not just hope that it holds together because we think that we can always elect 4 council members who will preserve it, but because it's guaranteed. And we have communities all around us who are doing it. Why is it such a bad idea? Why is it a bad idea when Draper is looking for more opportunities to do it and add to their 4,000 acres? And we're talking about 255 acres. It's a drop in the bucket, but it's a step in the right direction. It's a step toward benefiting all Alpiners, everyone, and take away from no one. Lon.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to weigh in on a few things. I did try to save us some time. That would have worked, But I do want to make it the public aware that I am in favor of protecting and preserving Lambert Park, any of our open spaces. That's always been the case. There's no question about that. The document you're asking me to sign tonight, though, or be in favor of, there are several things that I couldn't. Item 4. It says, whereas due to the unique local location and characteristics, there is and will continue to be pressure to develop portions of Lambert Park. I've never heard of anyone coming in and offering the city any money or any pressure to develop Lambert Park.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Lon, but just to be clear, that's a whereas, not a therefore. So, and there's a difference. The whereases and whether they're accurate or not is arguable. I agree. Okay. But they're just statements of the current condition.
Yeah. So a resolution is the opinion of the body of the council in this situation, right?
Yeah.
And so some of these things are not my opinion. Just like the motion that I made was not the opinion of 3 of the others.
Sure.
So again, in this process that we're going through, I'm all in favor of going through the process of then, as Greg pointed out on item 6, that city council has explored different options for preserving Lambert Park. This is the only option that I've seen us look at. Item 12, top of the other page, city council desires to make known its intent to move forward with a conservation easement. I don't know, as we move through the process and we get everything vetted out and we have some discussions on the legal aspect of that document that we haven't had opportunity to, because I have mine marked up in detail as to the difficult nature of that portion of it. I don't know that we'll proceed to make that. So that particular whereas, I couldn't sign that one either. And then as it pertains to the now, therefore be it resolved, the last part of it, the city council fully intends to authorize execution and recording of a conservation easement. I don't know that that's the case
For you.
And so, because it's not, we haven't gone through the process of finally getting all the information out and looking at the detail of the agreement. And so I take it for what it's written there and say, okay, I can't sign that one.
Okay, thank you. To the point of different management options, there are several options, and I think Jessica talked about Utah Open Lands being the best one that was recommended to us by legal counsel and others. When I referred to Draper a minute ago, their 4 conservation easements are actually being managed by the county. So we could flip that. We could go to the county to manage it. I don't know what the advantage would be of going to the county. So that's part of the ongoing discussion is Utah Open Lands the right ones to do this? In my judgment, they are, but that doesn't really carry any weight beyond next week. So we do have other options, but it is clear that many municipalities have recognized this as a very good way to preserve their open spaces for the enjoyment of everyone. Any other comments? Okay, so I'm going to pause and I'm going to give the speakers an opportunity to come up and state their opinion or their group's opinion. So we'll start with this side of the room. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Austin?
Amanda Collins, 1593 Rosanna Lane. So we talked about the planning commission's role, but what was the purpose in holding a public hearing, having the concerned citizens address the planning commission and not the city council, who seem to be the only decision makers in this process? Do you see any value in the planning commission's recommendation to table the conservation easement? Do you see any value in considering a multitude of residents' perspectives regarding the issue? Or is there only value to hearing the voices and perspectives that are in line with your own? I can tell you that the actions the mayor has taken to put a resolution on the agenda tonight and move this easement forward before the council even has 1 minute to discuss what was recommended by the planning commission and the public during the hearing shows blatant disregard for the opinions of those people who cared enough to cancel their own plans that night and show up to show that they care about the future of Lambert Park and is important to them and not just the council. We all care about Lambert Park and want a voice in its future. Direct quotes from the council. Mayor Stout in the April newsletter, which was the first time, not February, that you addressed it in the newsletters. I'd love to see the designation become permanent, but for first steps, a 20 to 30-year agreement with a chance to reevaluate and renew at the end of the term is a good start. Also, public input will be a big part of the process. I encourage you to attend our upcoming meetings, hear the facts, and participate in the process. Your voice will be heard. Jessica Smuin in the June newsletter, not just one person, one committee, a council, or group can accomplish this vision unless we all work together as a team. I have continued to hear words such as this, but as the public gets more educated on the matter and begins to voice more opinions, the action of the mayor is taking prove that these words are just words to quiet the concerned citizens and really have no intent or meaning behind them. Actions such as trying to squeeze the only public hearing in on election day, not involving or considering the planning commission as a valued role in this process, and presenting a resolution to declare intent to move forward with the easement before spending 1 minute discussing the objections to the conservation easement. The council says that they have heard enough input from the public. Quoting Mayor Stout in the October newsletter, 98% of those responding in the survey expressed support for a conservation easement, with a few people expressing some degree of concern about the unknowns. How could you possibly interpret the answers to those questions as in favor of the conservation easement? Look at the survey sent out, and you will see that there's not a single question asking if the citizens want a conservation easement. The questions on this survey, for example, how often do you use Lambert Park? Is there any part of the Lambert Park that should be sold for development? These questions accurately reflect that residents love Lambert Park and want to protect it, but it does not mean that we are for a conservation easement. Tell me when the council has put forward information such as pros and cons of a conservation and asked citizens to weigh in. Instead, the council has continued to move forward with producing a document and asking the citizens to weigh in on wording without even allowing citizens to weigh in on not only if they want to preserve Lambert Park, but if a conservation easement is the means by which they want to protect Lambert Park.
Thank you. I will respond to one of those points because you're right. The attempt to put a public hearing on election night was because I've been asking through this entire process what public hearings we need and what we're required to have. And at the last minute, it was suddenly brought to my attention that we needed one on the planning commission. We'd already had one on the city council. Before we thought that that was sufficient as far as our legal obligation goes, but then suddenly it wasn't. And so at that point, I did try to put that on the agenda for the planning commission on that night. And so it wasn't any attempt to, deceive or to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. It was simply, oh crap, we were just told this was necessary. So take that for what it's worth, but that's the explanation. Okay, from this side of the room, please.
Lane Franks, 866 North Country Manor Lane. So this side of the room, we talked a lot about being open to many ideas. And many of us came here tonight to hear the other side's input. And I think she made our case, really well in that it was kind of an attack on the process. We haven't heard any alternative plans. It's been more of it's unethical, attacks on the city council, attacks on the process. And I think you all have made very valid comments about this has been done many times before. And I think it's taken a lot of the fear out of it. I think you could also address the process. And so I think we're open. We're certainly in favor of it at this point in time. We think it should move forward. Certainly open to the fact that there's going to be more information that comes out that might change that idea. I think that's what you're saying as well. Maybe my comment along would be, I see this as kind of a hypothesis. You go with a hypothesis like we're going to do this, or we're going to test this. And as you go and you learn more, you change your hypothesis or the outcomes based on that. So I see this as kind of that hypothesis moving forward. And as you get more information and enter possibly into agreements, and as things get finalized, I'm sure all of you might change your minds one way or the other. You might be stronger in favor or stronger against it based on that. So I think this is a kind of learning process. Is that correct? So,
yeah.
So I think we're kind of open to that. I think we all want to protect Alpine, but we don't hear anything other than personal attacks, unethical statements, half-truths. And so for me personally, I'm looking for that alternative. And I've researched it quite a bit. And I do know Utah Open Lands. They've done this many, many times. Many cities, as you pointed out, have done it. We feel like many of the inputs or the arguments against it, which they don't come out and say, is just a single road through. Safety sometimes is brought up, but I think that's been addressed many, many times by the city council. So I guess we're all waiting for something new. And given that there's nothing new, we are in very much favor of moving forward and exploring this further and being open-minded to it. But I think we would encourage everyone to move forward with that mindset and avoid the personal attacks, the half-truths, the accusations and things, which is clearly the approach that we see from the majority of the people, the few people who are opposed to this.
Okay, thank you very much. And from this side of the room.
Hi, April Cooper. I live at 717 East, 100 South. I know you keep saying we have public comment and public hearing, but we keep getting this 3-minute time limit. And I still think you guys need to have a charrette and invite many of the citizens to come sit down and really work through the issues that we're having. Does this resolution tonight, don't answer my questions yet, and you guys can save them until the end. Does this vote on this resolution tonight take a supermajority? And if the intent is established, does that usurp this supermajority? So once the intent is established, is it only going to take a simple majority to sign a document? Because then I'm afraid that you guys are going to hurry and sign a document. I hope you'll vote no on the resolution. I think it's interesting. There's a guy that spends quite a bit of time on Facebook. I think his name's Tom Watkins or something. And he said, oh, everybody ran, the 4 people that won the election ran on this conservation easement. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Everybody that won, they got about 60%, somewhere in the 60s vote of the city. So if you're saying 60% of the city wants the conservation easement, and 38% of the city doesn't want the conservation easement based on how you voted for people, then it sounds to me, we'll have 3 people tonight vote yes for this and 2 vote no, because you guys say that you represent us and not yourselves. Carla said at the August 4th meeting that she wants Lambert Park in a conservation easement, but she wants to hear from us because this is a representative form of government. You guys vote for us and we're supposed to be representing the citizens. So I would love to hear both sides. Also, Wendy said at the August 4th meeting that she didn't have all the documentation on the title work, and there's a whole bunch more things that you guys were going to give us. The other thing is, in the resolution, there is a whereas that says that you have provided a draft agreement to us, and you have not. You've provided an excerpt of that. You've provided a 30-page agreement that references exhibits A, B, C, and D, and you just keep failing to give us those exhibits. So until you actually give us a draft agreement to read, review, and comment, that section of the resolution is false. You have not given us time to comment and review it. If you want to move the needle and get to 80% of the city that actually wants this easement, then you'll incorporate some of the compromises that you've told us. You've told us we could do a term like 20 or 30 years. You've told us that we could write the agreement more in our favor. I don't like the extinguishment clause. That would probably cost us, who knows, $30 to $50 million if we ever went to do eminent domain and claim it back, because we're giving a right to Utah open lands, and then we would have to pay them for their right if we ever extinguished it. So I know you keep saying that you keep hearing from us, but we keep getting glossed over, and the entire agreement that you showed us a little portion of was in favor of people that highly favor this easement, and then you still haven't compromised with the people that don't want it. So I'm hoping we'll get 2 no votes.
Thanks, April. Craig, quickly address what has not been provided for the public consumption.
How long is the title commitment, Shane?
So we have a PR. We had a PR earlier, I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe.
A PR.
Preliminary title report.
Preliminary title report. But there's a lot, like there hadn't been a boundary survey done. We've started that process. We have a map, but now all of the boundary issues around the perimeter need to be addressed. So I do have that survey map, but any boundary line agreements have not been completed. There's more work on the ground to do to accomplish that.
But in principle, how much does that impact the conservation easement? I mean, it doesn't terribly.
Mayor, let me address that. We have to have a perfect survey before we can record the conservation easement. It's got to go from A to B to C to D, et cetera, et cetera. We got gaps, we got overlaps, and there's just some title work that needs to be done. We may be conveying a portion of it to ourselves to clear up issues where we may have an overlap, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's the basic document that needs. We've been working on it for 90 to 120 days, and it's 250 some odd acres, and nobody's looked at it forever. And
my point being, though, that we still know where Lambert Park is. In principle, we know what we're trying to accomplish. Now, it is important that it's required that we have that done before we move forward with a vote, but it doesn't necessarily change the nature of the agreement.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
The document speaks for itself. The exhibits are illustrative of what's going to happen in it. For example, the council has said, we'd like to see a draft management plan before we move forward. Whether you adopt it at the same time, you don't have to. We've had the discussion at the work meetings regarding how long is the easement going to be there, 25, 30, 40, 50 years, all those. Wendy wants it forever, obviously, and that's Utah Open Lands. And so it's a working document, and we've struggled back and forth to maintain the core values, but also accomplish what Utah Open Lands generally expects.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our last speaker from this side. Did we have another speaker from this side?
Somebody else wants. I'm just kind of speaking for them, but there's some
Okay.
counter argument I'm gonna say.
We have 3 minutes from that side.
I would just like to hear counter proposals. I mean, I know that there's still a lot of details.
Come up to the mic, please.
I guess I would extend the challenge to the other side is, rather than criticize the process and things, what are the alternatives? What do they want? And if there's, more information, which I think we're gonna get to this process, and tonight's proposal is just to continue to explore and evaluate and negotiate those points, which will eventually be presented, I assume, for public opinion or comment. But again, the only comments we've heard tonight have been attacks on the process. So I would love, I came here tonight to hopefully hear from the individuals about if it's not the easement, what do they want to see? If it's not Utah Open Lands, then who do they want to be part of that? I think we've all said over and over, we all want to preserve Lambert Park. So I think we're in agreement on that. I would love to hear alternatives that, I assume you've all explored that and you said you have. So we'll take that, at this point, but I just haven't heard anything, or we haven't heard anything from the other side. So
okay,
I don't know if we can give them more time, but I'd love for somebody to step up and say, this is explicitly the alternatives, if we can do that. But anyway.
I'm gonna have you hold up because I granted time to 2 speakers from each
And
side.
maybe if we can do that on another time, or they can do that via
Yeah.
Facebook. But again, even on Facebook, since somebody referenced that, it was all unethical. There's been no public input, and you just flat out blatant, just inaccuracies. So that's it. So.
Not tonight.
No.
No, I will answer those questions. So April brought up the question about a supermajority. The supermajority, as I understand it, in talking with Craig, is not required for tonight's vote because it doesn't have a final determination on the park. If it did have a final determination on the park, it would require a supermajority vote.
But it doesn't eliminate the 4/5 requirement when the
When it comes
motion's
up.
on the table to approve or to deny the conservation easement.
Correct. Yep. So tonight is, the vote to move forward is simple majority. The vote, if it were a vote to impose any restrictions on the park or create a conservation easement by letter of the law, then it would be required to have 4/5 majority vote. Craig, you pointed out the survey that has not been put out there yet. What other documents are missing?
I don't remember.
One of the
be
exhibits is the
very candid.
baseline data. There's 4
Baseline data.
exhibits mentioned. I just put it away, but one of them was the baseline data.
All right. So right now, we have the language of the agreement that's out there, which is still under careful examination by the city council and continue to be, and it can easily be and probably will be changed. I'm gonna ask for you guys, just by raise of hands, how many of you, obviously we see who's in favor and who's opposed. If there was a term, 25 years on the conservation easement, how many people would change their mind? By raise of hands.
Would influence. It's a step in the right direction.
to move the needle a little. I would consider.
So, okay. All right, thank you.
Didn't anyone live here when they gave away all the water rights to Schoolhouse Springs?
Well, they didn't get,
You guys remember that?
Lehigh sued us for, I mean, we didn't give them.
Yeah.
Well,
We lost a
gave
lawsuit.
those up, correct?
We lost it, yeah.
You lost it.
So
Very forward-looking.
there are 2 different things. I think 2 things might be getting confused here, and I wasn't around for the first one, but my understanding on the water rights themselves, there was some agreement with Lehigh and Alpine. Lehigh needed some improvements to their water system, or sorry, Alpine needed improvements to their water system. Alpine didn't have the money to do that. They traded some water rights and got some improvements. The suit came in when Alpine and Lehigh jointly purchased property up there. They ended up not having the same ideas for the property. Lehigh ended up suing the city and condemning that property.
Yeah. To that though, there was a time back in 04 or 05, I believe it was, where we were asked to vote on a referendum whether or not we should bond to purchase Three Falls. And people were opposed to it because it was an additional tax. It was a bond. It would have been paid off eventually, and we would have owned Three Falls and Sliding Rock as a public area. And now people who weren't aware of that vote, some of them who voted in that election, are now saying, how could we possibly allow Three Falls to be developed? How could Sliding Rock be taken away from us? Well, the reality is the voters said no. That's a regretful move on our part. I know that if we had the chance to do it again, Alpine would vote in favor of that. And so, you know, it's funny how much strife is created by a situation like this that truly will benefit everyone for the long term. But people want to be heard, and that's perfectly, it's expected. But when we get into inaccuracies and claims and accusations, I think that's where we get way off base on this conversation. We should be talking together about how we can make this happen in the best possible way. To protest it, I don't know if that makes that much sense, because we can work together to create a much better situation. Now, as I've said, this is a step in the process. I don't have control of the process after tonight. It's going to be in the hands of your new city council and mayor. But I guarantee I will be part of that conversation, and I will be providing input and working with people who disagree with me, because it's important that we respect each other's point of view, but it doesn't mean everybody gets to win. It doesn't mean everybody gets their way. And in a democracy, we're going to make a vote at some point. We're going to take that vote. And we'll do, I believe, the council that you've elected will do what's right for the community. It may not be exactly what you want, but it will be right for the community, because nobody here is basing their decision on personal self-interests. They're doing it for the benefit of the community. And to be respectful of that would be a great thing, because as opposed to throwing darts all the time. That's my editorial. I won't get too deep into that, because there's things that are happening that don't belong in our community.
Mayor, may I make a motion that we extend the meeting to 9:30?
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was enthusiastic. All right.
But I will add one, I'm gonna add one thing since I just made an eye.
Yes.
With relationship to the planning commission. When we sent it over there, there were some individuals in the planning commission who didn't like the idea of perpetuity on it. What I would have hoped to have is, okay, what's the solution? Well, let's put ourselves a 12-year, a 15-year, 20, whatever it is, give us some solutions back. That's kind of what we're hoping from the planning commission.
Yeah.
Because that's something the city council has brought up as well. So there are things that we're looking for, but we're not looking from just to reject it. We're looking from to say, hey, here's how I'd make it better.
Thank you. Greg, you had some suggestions on language.
Yeah, there were a few things, and we'd probably need another session to go through it carefully. I think there's a handful. In general, I think this is just slightly a meeting or two ahead of me in terms of process.
Okay.
But I think it's I think this has been helpful. I think directionally it's right. We're one way or another, we're moving forward to get towards an appropriate solution. And, I think this has been a helpful conversation, actually, to have everyone, come and share input and discuss. And I think we have a better idea of where we need to work and go. And it's not a lot. I mean, we could just water it down a bit. There's just a few things that I think, basically move it forward. But I personally, right now, I'm not at a place where I'm declaring intent to move forward on a conservation easement. That's just a little bit ahead, just for what I said, because I haven't fully explored maybe some different options to accomplish the same effectively.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
thanks.
Further comments? Motions.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve resolution R 2021-18, a resolution of intent to impose a conservation easement on Lambert Park with the following conditions. Change the to in the 3 areas as noted at the beginning.
Okay.
I think that was all of the changes that were suggested to.
Suggestion.
Did you make
Okay.
a,
I did.
what was the suggestion?
On the therefore section.
Do we want a second before we make amendments? Do we have a second?
No, I think are you done with your motion?
Well, I'll add the therefore, the wording on the therefore.
Okay, no.
Second? Or
No,
to
she
make a
wants
comment?
to give
Oh,
me
sorry.
what that
Okay, go ahead.
information is.
She wanted to know what to include, and it was to express its intent to continue progressing towards a conservation easement. Or no, okay, intent to continue working on a conservation easement agreement and management plan for the preservation of Lambert Park. That's because that's what I thought this was, and I just feel like it makes it more clear. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So it would say, now therefore be it resolved that the city council of Alpine City hereby expresses its intent to continue to draft a conservation easement and management plan for the preservation of Lambert Park as public, and then continue. So instead of intent to enter into a conservation, it's intent to continue working on a conservation easement agreement and management plan.
Okay, so is that part of your motion?
Yes, include that change as
Okay,
part of my motion.
and is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Carla, so motion by Jessica Smew, seconded by Carla Merrill.
Mayor, may I jump in and say
Yeah.
something real quick?
Yep.
That motion and amendment being made really is contrary to the next two sentences in the same paragraph. Should they be deleted? Because the last two sentences are a little more direct and strident, and maybe that's not as far as you want to go tonight. So I would ask you to consider removing those last two sentences. After the word development, just delete the next two sentences.
Well, I guess I like that being in there because it clearly says we haven't finalized the language of the agreement.
Yeah.
You don't
When you
feel that
leave,
that's,
the sentence that says the specific terms is fine, but the sentence that begins with upon is a little more final than I think the language of Ms. Merrill's amendment.
So
Yeah.
tell me why the word acceptable doesn't keep that open and in alignment with Merrill's comment, because the comment was continue upon, with the process that we're engaged in. And then the word acceptable under review of an acceptable easement.
Or what if?
If you didn't have acceptable, I agree, but you have the word acceptable.
Or even if we don't, what if you just add fully intends to vote on it? Because that's really what we're saying, right? We're saying our intent is to continue with
To
this
vote.
process, and once we're done, we'll vote.
yeah. Yeah, we can't preclude that we're going to accept it. We just vote
Yeah.
on it. Yeah,
Would that work?
Yeah, so go through that one more time.
That upon review of an acceptable easement document and management plan, the city council fully intends to put the conservation easement up to a vote, or
To vote on the conservation
to
easement.
vote, yes, to vote into entering into a conservation easement. Because I thought that's what this resolution was, is that we're saying, as a city council, we're gonna continue working, and the end goal is to vote on it. If that's not it, then let me know, because
That was my
I'll give this to
understanding.
you.
yeah.
To declare that we're
That's really
That's why
continuing
I
with
changed
the
it to
process,
track change.
the due diligence process with the end goal of a vote.
yeah,
I just changed that last sentence. May I read it to you?
yes, please.
It says upon review of an acceptable easement document and management plan, the city council fully intends to bring to a vote of the formal document authorizing, which may authorize the execution and recording of the conservation easement for the benefit of the city and its residents.
No, sorry, we're not accepting public input right now. So where are you with that?
Bonnie, can you reread that with Carlos?
So he.
Okay.
Do we need a timeout?
Can we, I've been editing this as we're going, Bonnie here while she's taking minutes. So that the city council of Alpine City hereby expresses its intent to continue to draft a conservation easement amendment for the preservation. Is that right on that part, on that sentence? And then I just typed in here what Craig said. Upon review of an acceptable easement document amendment, city council to a vote, a formal document which may authorize.
Yeah, so I think that conveys what we're trying to do.
Jessica, is that good with you?
Yes,
Okay.
that will work.
Can you read the first part over again, pretty please?
Now therefore be it resolved that the city council of Alpine City hereby expresses its intent to continue to draft a conservation easement and management plan for the preservation of Lambert Park as public, and then everything else is the same as.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Okay. Okay, a couple of minutes for additional feedback.
Yeah, could I'd suggest 3 edits to that proposed amendment. One, in the 4th whereas, if it could say, whereas, due to its unique location and characteristics, there may be pressure to develop portions of Lambert Park.
I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
Yes,
It,
I would agree with that.
Will you accept the amendment? That's all acceptable.
Then in paragraph 5, where it says, subject to future critical public uses, I would strike the word critical, future public uses in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare. Because it seems to me that many things would be seen as not critical, particularly of a recreational nature or even utilities.
What do you say?
Critical.
And Steph, tell me your reasoning behind that as well.
Well, just in general, it seems that almost anything could be seen as not being critical. But any public use, almost.
It's an interpretive word.
It's an interpretive word, yeah. It's almost seems that it's almost of a emergency or public safety usage only.
I can see that going either direction.
And then in paragraph 6, the city council has determined that a conservation easement carefully drawn will best serve the purpose of preserving Lambert Park, etc. Anyway, basically striking has explored different options. And I know that because I know that's true to a degree, but I don't know how thorough we can sort of demonstrate that. I know we have, but not maybe as exhaustively as would be helpful, particularly for public understanding.
I think it's a fair general statement, though, that we have explored other options.
Yeah.
Craig, can you give some context behind that?
Mr. Gordon, please help me out with what you just said.
This is paragraph 6. I was saying to strike has explored different options.
I did that.
Yeah. But otherwise, has determined that a conservation, all the rest of the paragraph, that a conservation easement is the intent here.
I think on that, I'd like to leave it because we have spent time looking at different ways to accomplish a permanent protection.
Doesn't say that we explore exhaust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
we
fair.
have
There's been exploration, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
And
fair.
that's
So I'll
happened.
withdraw.
So the
that one.
first two, I'm fine with that, and then leaving 6 as is.
But I don't think even taking the sixth one out, the last one here, does anything negative to it.
Yeah.
The city council has determined that a conservation easement carefully drawn may best serve the purpose.
Okay, so those amendments are acceptable to you. And Carla?
Yes.
Paragraph 4, paragraph 5, you're okay with it, paragraph 6.
Correct.
I withdrew that.
Yep.
Okay, anyway, but I think with that, it's a more document
Yeah.
and it states we're moving forward with the process
That's fair.
and looking at a conservation easement, to be, honed and, developed.
Okay,
That's my.
thank you, Greg. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the table by Jessica Smewen, seconded by Carla Merrill, with several amendments made by Greg Gordon and Carla, sorry. Yes. So if there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, let the record show that the motion passed by a 4-to-1 majority. The dissenting vote being Lon Lot, and voting in favor was the rest of the council.
And that's a resolution. Do we need to take a roll call?
I was just going to come back to
Do
that.
we need to? Okay, it's not financial, but we still need to. All right. So we'll take a roll call vote on that motion.
Jason Thielen, yes.
Greg Gordon, yes.
Carla Merrill, yes.
Jessica Smewen, yes.
Lon Lot, no.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, so moving on through the agenda, let me just get back to my.
So now
Okay, item C,
I was putting.
resolution R 2021-18. I'm sorry. Glasses.
No.
Resolution D, sorry, item D, ordinance 2021-20 guest houses. Okay, Austin, take it away.
All right, so this is a proposal that's coming from a resident of Alpine. This is coming from Scott Johnson, who is the owner of lot 54 in the Three Falls subdivision. He is proposing that the guest house ordinance be changed. His original proposal was to add an exception clause to our ordinance to allow the city council the ability to grant exceptions for guest houses. That went to planning commission last week. The planning commission didn't like that suggestion, and they offered, put forth or recommended alternative language. So this is what the planning commission has recommended in the language that we see here in green on the screen. The green would be new language added to the ordinance. It's saying, I'll just read with the sentence that it's impacting vehicular access to the guest house shall be over the same driveway as for the primary dwelling, unless a secondary driveway can be accessed from another public right of way. So under our current ordinance, a guest house has to be on the same driveway as the main house. What this recommendation is, and what the applicant is proposing is that there be a second driveway for a guest house in the event that it comes off of a different public right of way. So this would be like a corner lot. Let me just pull up the lot that we're talking about. So this is the lot, it's 5 acres. The house would be located approximately, and this, when I say house, I mean main house, would be located approximately, let's see if my annotation thing's gonna work, right there in the purple. And he wants to put a guest house up here on the northeast corner of the lot. So he would have a driveway, we'll just change the color here. His primary driveway would be something like that. He'd like to have another driveway for his guest house up here instead of having one big long driveway that goes like that. The reason why he has to build his house where it is, it'll probably be helpful if I pull up the plat.
Don't they have to share a sewer and water between those two buildings?
They do.
They're able to do that.
He'd still have to meet that requirement.
Won't the guest house be uphill?
Yes.
Yes, it would be.
Usually does.
Well, no doubt.
So
You know the old saying. It all does.
if we look at this plat here you're seeing on the screen, these two things are easements that run through the property. So he's dealing with that. There's a lot of, he has a floodplain that runs through the property. Three Falls is very particular in that you can only build on approved building envelopes. And so this is not an existing building envelope. And so he's also going to propose a plat amendment, which we'll look at a later item on the agenda tonight, but in order to build this guest house. But what's on the table right now is this language change. The idea is that if you're on 5 acres, it's such a big property, what's the harm in you could actually have a second driveway. If it was just a garage and it wasn't a guest house, you could have 2 driveways coming the way that he's proposing it.
Great.
But it's when you change it to a guest house.
We could probably do these next ones really quick, some of them. Yeah, make a motion to move to approve ordinance 2021-20 as proposed.
Okay, motion
I'll
by
second
Jason
that.
Phelan, seconded by Lon Lot. I have a quick question. It seems like a perfectly logical thing to do. What assurances do we have, though, that it won't become a short-term rental?
We have an ordinance that doesn't allow short-term rentals.
Right. And we assume that everyone follows the ordinances, right?
That's right.
And the laws.
But it could be an accessory, or could it, yeah.
An apartment.
It could be an accessory dwelling
Could be
unit.
a long
He
term.
could rent it
Yeah,
out as
which we
a
permit.
long-term rental, a second.
But
Which
could
we
he
can
have
outline.
one in his home still, in the main residence, in addition, or just one?
Yes.
Accessory dwelling units, you're allowed one on the property.
Yeah, okay.
And
Got it.
guest houses, you're only allowed one property also, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Over 5 acres.
So if you could just kind of address the owner with, I'm a little bit confused with the fact that there were 2 dwellings on that secondary driveway.
Yeah,
And also that they're aware of the limitations for square footage, 25% of total square footage or 1,000 feet, whichever is less.
that only applies to accessory dwelling units, not to guest houses.
It doesn't?
Yeah, guest houses, there is no square footage limitation.
Oh, I thought that was for the guest house. Are you sure?
We can pull the ordinance up, but I don't believe that's the requirement there.
Page 2, and here is the ordinance. It does have its setback things, but setback requirements. But it doesn't say anything about square footage that I see.
Okay, so it must have been the accessory.
Yeah, this is the guest house ordinance that we have on the screen right now. So I don't see anywhere that it talks about a square footage limitation.
So Carla, I guess if there were the setback requirements may limit them to the size that it could be in certain areas, then especially in that narrower area. That have to have front, rear setbacks, side setbacks.
Setbacks and building envelope would
And building
would
envelope.
limit how big they could go.
So the home occupation.
A home occupation is a business that's run out of your home.
Okay, so that's this where I read this from.
Okay, any further questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I'm using this.
And the second one, I can go through real quick, because just applies to it.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so this one should be really quick because you're already familiar with the plat. So basically, all this plat amendment is doing is asking that they be granted a building envelope up on the northeast corner of the lot. So that area highlighted in purple. The reason this is not recorded on the plat, and the only way they can do that is if we amend the plat to do
Are there
it.
slope issues right there?
There are not. The slope issues are just north of that. And
Okay.
And one question, Austin, does this change the open space boundary on this one?
on this lot, it doesn't change the
Not this one.
boundaries of the lot at all.
Okay, perfect.
This is just saying you can build in this area on this lot
Okay.
within the current boundaries.
We have a motion.
I move to approve the Three Falls subdivision plat H with the following conditions prior to the recording of developer. One, address the red lines in the plat and plans, and two, receive a letter of approval from the Three Falls Architectural Review Committee for the proposed new buildable area.
We have a motion by Jason Thielen to approve. Do we have a second to the motion? Seconded by Carla Merrill. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item.
Okay, so this is Three Falls Plat I. This is lot 46, I believe. Let me just double check. Or lot 50. Yeah, the next one's 46. So this is lot 50. What we're doing essentially is they're proposing to make this lot look like this. So what would happen is you would get rid of the lot down here, and this would become open space. There's an easement that runs through there that would now become part of the city's. The easement's right here. And then you'd be getting rid of some private open space. So the city views this as kind of a win-win situation. We're getting more open space. We get the easement on our open space. And it's a win for the owner because they get a wider lot and they can do what they want to on the lot.
So is the red portion, is that public open space or private open space?
It would become, currently, it's part of their lot, but it would become
Public
it
open
would
space.
become public open space.
Okay.
And I should say, actually, it's both their lot and private open space right now, but it will become public open space. So let me go to the plat so you can see what this looks like. That was the kind of the before. This would be the after.
The city has a detention pond through that easement, just on the other side. And I thought that was crazy to have an easement running to a detention pond of yours, so I was swapping land for land with private with Three Falls. So Three Falls has said yes, taking some of their private open space in exchange of giving you guys some of my land for public open space.
And that's adjacent to open space that's already there?
Yeah.
Because I get mixed up on that.
Yeah, so everything here, this is all public open space.
Okay.
And this is private open space in the purple here. And their lot is this right here. So that's their private lot. Blue is public open space, purple is private open space.
Okay. Okay, good.
Okay, I'll make a motion
Thanks, Elaine. Lon?
that we approve the plat amendment for Three Falls Plat I.
Okay, we have a second to Lon Lott's motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Lon Lot, seconded by Jason Thielen. Any further question or discussion?
Is there anything the city needs to do on that public open space? Any upkeep, any retaining walls, anything else? It's just perfectly natural.
It's just natural.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. It passes.
I was an aye, Mayor, but no.
I'm sorry, say that again, Greg?
Sorry, I was an aye.
Okay,
I think we, yeah.
I thought I heard a little eye out of you. Okay,
I want to make a motion
okay,
to extend the meeting to 9:45. Last meeting of the
We can do
year. I
this
want
in
to hear
5 minutes.
staff reports and make sure we get our last
do
few
we have a second
minutes
to that
together.
motion? Okay. Anybody second?
I tried to get this.
I'll
meeting
second
done
it.
earlier.
You second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
No
All opposed?
discussion? No discussion?
No discussion on extending the
No,
motion?
let's just,
We got 5 minutes of the
We'll
meeting.
do
We're
staff
extending the
reports.
meeting.
I know, no discussion on the motion.
Rob
Oh,
Bay is
sure. You
waiting.
want to discuss
Yeah,
it?
I want to discuss the motion. I want to discuss what we're going to cancel then in order to get staff reports in. Can we push the MAG project?
I don't think so.
Does anybody but me have anything on staff reports?
I don't.
Mine are pretty short.
I just, let's see,
TikTok.
I just need to mention, well, I do have something regarding the conservation easement.
Okay, I think we're gonna get it all in. Let's go for it.
Okay.
no, the
9:45?
math thing's really long.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I.
Okay, so motion fails.
All right, let's get through this.
So-
Rob Bay's waiting.
the com-
Let's roll.
Wait, Greg didn't vote.
Did you vote, Greg?
It's 15 more minutes.
Greg, you're feeling a little insecure.
I voted nay. I'm stuck on item I, like, anyway, yeah, so.
So did you vote to pass the motion or to?
I
against
voted
it?
nay, but,
A vote's a vote.
yeah, nay.
Okay, sorry, we've got 4 minutes. Anybody who wants to stay after and listen to my speech, you can. All right, so do we have a motion to table any of these items? We're gonna need to.
What's the most important thing that we talk about?
Do we need to pass?
The mag.
Why
Plat
don't we
J.
do Plat J while we're rolling?
Do we need to have that done now versus January? And do we have a
Um,
timeline? That's my concern.
Let's see. I don't know. The owner's not here. Will's not here.
Let's table it.
Table everything
Let's
after
push it.
Plat J. We'll do the
I'd
annual meeting
like to
schedule.
hear about the
Let's-
cemetery and
let's-
the expansion of.
Let's hear the cemetery.
The 4800 West is kind of important.
Timely? Okay, quickly.
Well, they
Just says discuss.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a big deal, so I think we need to get the word out there, and there's an application being submitted by Highland City for funding for their portion of this project, and phase 1 it's laid out, comes into Alpine to Healy Boulevard.
Phase 1 does?
Yeah.
I thought we were phase 2 and 3.
Phase 2 and 3 are north of Healy Boulevard.
I don't, Healy Boulevard is almost impossible to get out of in the morning right now as it is. That's gonna make it so much worse. Literally, you
Yeah, no,
can't,
I
you have to
just-
either break the law or catch a break to get out.
This will
there.
make it worse?
Yeah, didn't you say it exits into Healy Boulevard?
No,
No, no,
no,
no,
that's
no,
where
no,
it's,
no, no, no,
that's
no.
where the
Sorry.
widening starts.
This is what
Sorry.
would make it better.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, no, they're widening it.
So,
You guys, we need to go longer. We have to
Okay.
go through this.
how much time do we need?
I'm at the
I
mercy
think
of the
motion
council.
to 9:45. It's the last meeting of the year. These are
We need
important
to go through the
topics.
mag thing. I think,
We're
think-
sitting here.
We just need. to-
Does this make you regret running for reelection, Jason?
talking about. All right.
Okay, I move to extend until 9:45.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I.
Okay, we have a good motion.
And did we table the previous item?
No, we're still doing Plat J, right?
Yeah, let's just go
Quick
fast.
It's really quick.
I'm doing the
I can
happy
make
dances.
this
It's my last meeting.
20 seconds.
Jason, make a motion.
Well, I'm just wondering, as long as it doesn't affect, we're not
It's-
losing
it's-
private open space or public open space, and it doesn't affect the trail.
It doesn't affect the trail. The trail is close to it, but it's not affected.
Does it get
It's,
close?
and we gain more open space, just like the last one, we gain extra open space. They get a bigger lot and we're reducing private open space.
Can you draw it on here real quick?
Sure. So before, this is the before, you can see private open space is this piece right here. That basically goes away. And here's the after, you get this nice squared lot here. This is all public open space. Let's do purple here, public open space. And our trails are unaffected, but our trails run like this.
Do you know what trail that is?
So,
I believe that's forbidden.
Okay.
but importantly, our trail is now on public open space.
Yes, it
Through
is
this.
on,
So
yeah,
that's-
no longer would be on private open space, it's on public open space.
Can you go back to the pre-one, the one that was before the change?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So this is, now I'm gonna do this, but now they're giving us access to the private open space off that road, whereas before there's no access off this cul-de-sac into the public open space.
Yeah.
lands.
All right.
Well, that's a win-win for
Yeah,
us.
Yeah, it's a
So
big win.
Make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend approval of Free Falls subdivision plat J with the following conditions. Prior to the recording, the developer to address the red lines in the plat and plans, and 2, receive a letter of approval from the Three Falls Architectural Review Committee for the new proposed boundaries.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, 48th West.
Okay, Jed's on here because he's on via Zoom. He's been more involved in this than I have. I kind of came in at the tail end. So Jed, are you there?
I am impatiently waiting.
Hey, Jed.
Well, I know we're pressed for time here, so I don't want to sit here and talk for 15 minutes and then run out of time. So I'm not sure how to condense this into about a 2 or 3 minute speech, but I'll do my best. Yeah, I'll do my best. Austin, is there a way you can give me control?
I might be able to control, I don't know if.
All right, well,
I don't think so.
I'll just tell you the page numbers to go to. If you go to page 128 in the packet, we are all aware of the congestion issues on Canyon Crest. These 2 pages, this one and the next one, are commonplace for Canyon Crest every single morning. This is a morning picture. The afternoon picture is from 11,200 north in Highland going to SR 92. It is not uncommon to see this back up, clear up and over that hump in the road at Canyon Crest. So it's a big deal. Recognizing the congestion issues, Alpine, Highland, and Lehigh all teamed together and proposed to MAG a traffic study that was done back in, or we proposed it in 2018. The study was recently completed. The purpose of the study was to identify projects that could reduce the congestion going to SR 92. Austin, page 148, I think, shows the study. Just type in page 148. If you can type in a page number, there you go. So they studied the whole corridor of SR 92 from I-15 to the mouth of American Fork Canyon. They proposed improvements to several of the intersections along here, but one of the top projects was this intersection at 4800 West and Canyon Crest. The study pointed out that there obviously needs to be more lanes through that intersection to help traffic flow. Essentially, they would be extending the road platform of North County Boulevard all the way to the roundabout in Alpine. Wow. So that is what the study came up and pointed out what needs to happen for the traffic we have now and the future traffic we'll have in the future.
Jed,
yeah, go ahead.
There's a little bit of shock right there. So let me back that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, what I was
a good wow.
5 lanes, but a different cross section. So not as
correct. That's exactly what I was just going to get into. When we first started working through this with Avenue Consultants was the traffic firm that we were working with. When we first started working with this, they gave us the cross section shown on page, I believe it's 122 or 124. So they proposed this cross section, which, as you can see, it has bike lanes on both sides. There's 5 total road lanes, travel lanes for traffic. You got 2 north, 2 south, plus your turn lane. Then you have a park strip, a 10-foot wide multi-use path, and a space of about 3 feet between the right-of-way and that multi-use path. Well, when we overlaid this cross section onto the existing properties in Alpine and Highland, we realized that this cross-section would require a complete taking of multiple properties to be able to put that cross-section in. So we went back and forth a couple times with them, and just a couple pages up in the staff report here, Austin, you have a condensed cross-section. I believe it's figure 1. This is kind of the final version of the most condensed cross-section they came up with to propose. You'll notice the bike lanes are gone. All there is the travel lanes. The park strip got a little bit more narrow, and if we had the time, we could look closer at things, but in the actual design, they ended up dropping off the park strip in a few places, because even with the park strip there, it was too much. What they did not drop off was this 10-foot wide multi-use path. And the reason they're not dropping that off is because that is an important component of connecting Alpine City to the North Utah County active transportation system. Page 125, I believe it's only a couple pages down in the report here. It shows this is the current MAG active transportation system map. It is showing a gap in their connectivity right along this corridor that we're talking about. And so something they did not want to compromise on was connecting a multi-use path to the rest of the active transportation system in the North Utah County area. The red lines are paved trails. The purple lines are wider concrete paths, essentially wider concrete paths to connect you to those other trail systems. So yeah, so that is what they've condensed it down to. If you wanted to zoom in on some of the actual impacts this would have on residents that live along this corridor, I did create a phased map that shows where the phasing would be. That is page 121 or 122. I think it's only just right above this, Austin, sorry.
Jed, can you finish up in about a minute and a half?
Yep, I'm doing my best. So this is what we would propose as how to phase this project. Phase 1 would be the red area. It goes from SR 92 to Healy Boulevard. Phases 2 and 3 are the green and yellow areas. They would come at some later point in time. Our feeling is that if we could at least get phase 1 done, there may or may not ever be a need for phase 2 and 3. We just have to see how traffic goes to see what happens in the future.
Is our funding responsibility the same on 2 and 3?
Our funding responsibility is I think it's 6.77%. I know it's in between 6 and 7. Only of the portion of the project that is within Alpine City. So on this phase 1, it would only be 6 to 7% of the red area within Alpine City. It would not be 6 to 7% of the entire red area. So obviously, what we're coming for tonight to the city council is, number 1, we need to make you aware of the project. Number 2, we are looking for your support in the project. And as far as support goes, MAG actually requires the city, and this is going to be funny, MAG actually requires the city to have an updated general plan, which includes a 5-lane road on Canyon Crest prior to March 17th.
So we just passed it. We're going to update it tomorrow.
It's just an
So,
Hearing.
yeah, and so we haven't figured out exactly what that means, but that is what MAG requires. It may not mean we do any changes to the general plan at all. It may mean we only change the transportation master plan. We need to look into the details of that and bring that back towards the first of the year. But regardless, the project timeline as far as submitting this to MAG, having MAG approve the funds and such, our deadline is March 17th, whether or not we have a 5-lane road approved by the city council. And that approval will essentially say yay or nay on whether or not the city council is backing this project or not.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
I
who's
have a
prepared to
question.
make a motion?
I have a question on one of them.
We don't need a motion.
Oh, I thought we needed
this
to
is
have
for
a
information
resolution.
Only
Okay,
tonight.
Yeah,
okay,
so
good.
Okay, so if we
Shane,
have questions, we just address it after.
Later date.
Shane
okay.
and Jed,
Thank you,
I
Jed.
read through this. I thought it was terrific. I don't,
Yeah.
you want to highlight something negative.
To my previous comments, when I misunderstood the point of this, I'm relieved to see
It
this is
opens
what it
it up.
is. Yeah.
Just to be clear, so there'll be an application for funding, so we believe, and even MAG staff seems to think that this project would have a good opportunity of being funded, because we've never had a MAG funded project here. And to only have to pay 6.77% of the cost is huge. This is a very expensive project.
When do we fill out that request, and when, do I need to sign it, or do we just submit it now?
It'll actually come the first year. So
Okay,
you won't-
I'm
you
out.
don't have to sign it. We'll be talking to Carla.
All right, good.
And the council.
Call
so-
Carla.
But we wanted to roll this out here so you can be thinking about
Okay,
it,
thank you.
because it's,
Yeah. I don't
you
know if
know,
that's an error.
Okay, do we need the cemetery?
cemetery really quick.
30 seconds?
Yep, just look at the phase map. So we've laid this out. The way we'd like to approach this is to plan for phase 1. So the more northern part of the project, it includes 1,239 plots. I think there will be a few that will drop off. We've looked at this as a whole to see if the cuts and fills kind of balance, or, we don't want to export a whole bunch. We don't want to import a whole bunch. So we're trying to balance that. If we can work on phase 1, then we need to look and make sure that we're close to a balance there, or if we have to make a few adjustments. But we think that's kind of the low hanging fruit of this project, and that we should approach it that way. Honestly, phase 3 may never be built. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an 18-foot.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, if we do phase 3, we should look at, seriously consider mausoleums in that area.
That's another bad
It's
idea.
so steep and
Yeah.
it's so tight.
It's tough.
Okay,
So we wanted to be able to keep moving forward in December, and so that's why I'm trying
Okay.
to make sure we address
so
this.
is there anybody here who objects to this? No. Okay, let's move forward.
Okay.
Do we make a motion?
When
We
will
don't-
this allow for plots to be starting to be sold again?
Well, probably on this, it would probably be 2023.
Okay,
By the time we get construction, get grass established and everything, and get it laid out and go right out. And
So-
then
And can
we've
you
got a lot
double,
to discuss
can you
there.
double the plots here, or is it the same problems that we have in our current cemetery that you can't do double?
We can't really do double because it becomes a trench safety issue, really.
Okay.
Hmm.
I thought it was something.
Yeah.
okay.
So are we
Do you need
talking
a
about
vote?
phase 1 only here? Or-
Yeah, that's what we'd like to move forward with. So it would include that, what's labeled as the middle road.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I move to approve the proposed concept plan and phasing plan for the expansion of the cemetery for phase 1, including the lower and middle road.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion by Greg Gordon, seconded by Jason Thielen. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to make a motion, and I don't ever do this, but to extend the meeting just one last time. It's Mayor's last time here. So I make a motion to extend till
I'll second.
9:56.
It's my last night.
I'll
Let's do it all night.
second.
I'm ready for it. Okay, all right, thank you, Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay, staff reports. Chief 1.
I don't have anything.
Nothing?
Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've got three people, deployed to Southern California. They
Saw
are
that.
pre-mowed. They've caught one little fire that they got control We got word today they're gonna be out there for the whole tour, so.
Okay.
But
We're
they're hoteled up in Southern California.
Still allows us to stay staffed at least 3 in each station right now for us. Okay, great. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, staffing goes on.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Austin?
I don't have anything. I just spoke to Craig about what I was gonna bring up and I don't need to bring it up, so I'm not going to, but thank you for your service, Mayor Stout.
Thank you.
Congratulations and best wishes.
Thank you very much.
I'll pass tonight.
Okay.
Motion to table.
Okay. Bonnie? Nothing? Okay.
Okay, 3 Falls secondary access, if you look up there, they planted some trees to help kind of make things blend in a little bit better. And then as we get into spring, they'll be working on the kind of staining and that patina project that was discussed earlier. We talked a lot about Blue Bison, Box Elder South. We received a petition for annexation. Patterson's essentially have sold their lots and said, look, homeowners, you guys need to take over the HOA. We're not the HOA anymore. So that happened sometime recently. I think it was late last week or mid last week, right before Thanksgiving, we received that annexation petition. So that will be coming forward next year. I mentioned Lambert Park survey. It's still going to take some time. It's a 255-acre survey. It's not, there's a lot of properties that are adjacent. So I don't know what you think about the new chairs. We got those installed. They are stackable. These aren't new.
Yeah.
Everything but up here is new. And yeah, the first night we had them full.
Good test drive.
How are they?
Hey, 3 or 4 hours in, they're awesome.
Feel free to stand.
Just quick update on the fire station. The council approved the contract to do a feasibility study. They've given us kind of the first draft of that. We're working on a few things and then we'll be bringing that back in January. And then just remember, no Low Peak meeting next week.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see that canceled, but oh well.
Yeah. There wasn't anything to discuss, so no sense to have a meeting, just have a meeting.
Couldn't we watch cops videos? Just for fun. All right.
And
thank you.
Thanks for, I guess the mayor's the only one going out. It's been a good 4 years and then the previous year before that.
Thank you.
It sounds like we'll see some more of you maybe sitting in.
I'll be one of these guys yelling and complaining about you people all the time. Throwing out nasty Facebook posts. Okay. Lon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate all you've done for the city.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
your
very much.
diligence and your effort.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Appreciate
butt
that.
in. Thanks to Mr. Stout as well.
Yeah.
For all the nights that he was not at home.
Do you have anything, Jessica?
Craig, we talked quickly about maybe committees being
Yes.
able to hit the ground running in January. Any feedback on that?
I think Shane and I talked about it yesterday. I don't remember what day it was, yesterday or today.
One of those days.
You know, I think after thinking about it, mulling over in my mind, I think if we did one ordinance with the preamble, setting up the structures of all the committees, and then have paragraph A, B, C, and D regarding the responsibilities of the various committees, you could do it. I would just make sure that if you establish them, that they're functional and have a purpose. Shane had indicated that this may be a deja vu.
Oh, I was gonna, maybe we could talk tomorrow after we meet on the website.
Perfect.
Just chat about a couple
Okay.
things.
Yeah, and thanks, Stout family. I actually think her more
Yeah.
than you. Yeah.
She's the brains of the operation for sure.
I agree with Jessica. Thank Jen.
Yeah.
Enjoyed our years.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Mrs. Stout and Megan.
Yeah. That's all. Thank you, Greg.
Here comes another thank you. Appreciate you. We appreciate your friendship. I think you've
Thank
done a
you.
great job. What is it, like 16, 18 years now.
14. Yep.
It's just interesting that people, they don't understand how much work you put in over the years. And so just thank you. And, we're lucky to have people that are willing to do it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason. And I just want to thank everybody, really. It's been a real pleasure serving with all of you. I really feel like this council has gotten along and really delved into the issues deeply, better than, we've served with a lot of really great people. But as a whole, I think this has been a really good group that we've been getting along, even though when we have differing opinions. I think we're respectful of each other. We appreciate each other, and none of our opinions, I don't think, have been established without the homework. I really admire Greg and everybody here for the amount of work that you put into your assignment as a council member. And I know that no decision that we've made has been made frivolously or without proper research and real thought into what we do. And so I appreciate that. And going now out there where I won't have a voice here anymore, I'm excited for this council. And I know that you're going to accomplish great things, and you'll do it in a way that makes people feel good about where they live and where they are and who's making decisions for them. I'd like to extend a congratulations to Kelly Law for being our newcomer, and excited to see what you're able to accomplish here, Kelly. And I know you'll approach it with the same degree of seriousness and commitment that all of these people have. Really feel like it's a very cerebral, well-founded group based on, really strong principles, and nobody ever loses track of who they represent and how they're to represent them. So thank you for your service, each of you. And it's been a pleasure serving with you. It couldn't have been a better experience. To staff, you guys are awesome, freaking awesome. I mean, you accomplished so much with relatively so few heads. Our people, our staff really is committed to making this a beautiful, wonderful community. And, Shane and everybody who's in this room and those who are not, your efforts are so much appreciated by the community. It's a beautiful place to live because of you guys. Let's see, our chiefs and our attorneys, new, but doing a great job. Appreciate them. Appreciate you, Austin, and all the work you put in. And lastly, I'll say to our two chiefs, you guys are so great. You are such a huge part of establishing who we are as a community and creating a sense of order that is not strong-handed, just simply creating a great positive environment. I can't think of a negative thing to say about either police or fire. In fact, to the contrary, it's just showers of praise, really. And it starts with you too. We've seen enormous changes in the fire department since we made a change there. No disrespect to who was here before, but Chief Patton, you've got a handle on making this just a quality fire department. And Chief William, can't think of a better chief out there in the universe. Just really appreciate you. Thank you. With that, motion to adjourn. Oh, wait a minute. To my wife, who has been amazing and who is the rock of our family and of my commitment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
I'm afraid you're the only one I didn't point out in the room. I'm sorry.
That was smart. Yeah, just that guy on Facebook. I love those. I'll leave that to somebody else.
No, but the second of what Troy said, they had that first responders dinner. They
January.
Just really great.
Would have been brutal had we not been able to talk.
Oh, yeah.
They got little kids.
They own items.
I've been out of touch for about 10 days.